Hey everyone, it's Susan Peirce Thompson. Can you hear me? Is this working? I'm gonna see. Someone on my team must be in here. Send me a text message in Voxer or somewhere and tell me that it's working. Hi everyone. Oh wow, there's a lot of people here. Let me just look at the chat thread here for a second. Where's the chat thread? And let's see. Oh my gosh. Wow, look at that chat thread moving so fast. It's working. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Idaho, Berkeley, California, Cleveland, Ohio. Paula says, hi, Susan. Maureen from Cold Michigan, Houston. Becky is here. Sequoia. Mari from Utah. Paul from Texas. Sally Ann from Pittsburgh. Barb from Vancouver, British Columbia, where it's so beautiful there. Karen from Olympia, Washington. Angela from Utah. Joanne from New York. Oh my gosh, there's 728 people in the room. People are flooding in so fast. Holy smoke-a-doodles. Wow. Look at all these people. Hi. Hey, everybody. I've been working on this webinar all day. So in case you haven't noticed, like this Reboot Rezoom thing, it dawned on me a few months ago. I was like, I gotta create this course. People need this course. And registration opened yesterday. I had no idea that people were going to register at the rate they have been. It's been really overwhelming. Wow. I guess the Reboot Rezoom framework has really been hitting a nerve for people. I mean, it just came out of my own experience. I was just struggling for so long. After bright line eating exploded, I just found it hard to keep my lines bright consistently like I used to be able to. And that gave me this experience with like breaking and resuming, like lots of other people do. The difference for me is my identity has been really strong, right? A lot of people struggle with breaking and resuming because really their identity is not strong. They're still doing bright line eating as a diet. But I wasn't. I haven't been doing I've never done bright line eating as a diet, really. I came in here knowing I was pretty much a hope to die food addict. So, but anyway, found myself breaking and resuming mainly because the pace of my life was so intense, and I just needed to sort of figure out how to create that cushion. I couldn't keep the cushion. But anyway, so the Reboot Rezoom idea came to me, I don't know, a couple months ago. And since then, it's a lot of work to create all this, right? Those videos that you've been watching, you know, that's no joke to create all that stuff. So anyway, just saying, today's webinar, like I've been thinking through the neuroscience behind all this, and I've been putting it to PowerPoint today. Those who've been, following along on the bright line eating journey for a long time, who've been to all the family reunions and watched all the live streams and all the webinars, you'll find pieces and parts of the psychology and neuroscience that I've presented in various places are in this webinar, because the background of Reboot Rezoom does sort of pull from lots of things that we've already been talking about here in bright line eating for 2 or 3 years. But I've never presented it quite in this way before. I think you'll enjoy it. Those of you who are newer, this will be new to you. So anyway, look at, there are 4,000 people in here? Okay, that's crazy. Annika from Oslo, Norway is here. Wow. Laura says hi from South Carolina, where they fry everything. Kendra from Sydney. I miss Sydney. One of my best friends, one of my mastermind group members, my Bright Line Eating Mastermind, is in New Zealand right now, and we did our mastermind call on Zoom, and it was 5 a.m. tomorrow for her, and we were in, I think it was Queensland, New Zealand, and we saw the sunrise at 5:30 a.m. in Queensland, New Zealand, where it's sunrise. I mean, it's summer, right? Like 5:30 a.m. the sun was rising. The sun's not rising here till 8 a.m. It was crazy. Just like I could feel summer over there. Sharon says hi from Alabama. Ginny says snowing here in Arizona. Wow. Julia says, hope you've had sleep. I did. I slept 9.5 hours last night. Someone must have known that I was up all night the night before shooting videos till 9 a.m. I took a nap from 9 till 10:45 a.m. and then went to float. Irina from Toronto, Beverly from Utah, Lucy from Virginia, Kathy, another San Diegan. Oh, wow. Mickey from Florida. Sophie from Belgium, Europe. Ursula from London, Ontario. All right. I think we should get started. We're 11 minutes in. Can I just tell you that I kept picturing not being ready to start for half an hour or an hour, making you all wait for half an hour or an hour because I still had to finish my PowerPoint slides. I had these, and I I called my life coach earlier today. I was like, I need help because I got to get I know, I like my PowerPoints to be just so. So I'm actually stoked that we're only starting 12 minutes late, and we're not really that late because I think I logged in here at about 5 past the hour. I don't know if you don't know me well, I'm sort of chronically late to everything. Kathy from South Africa, Rosemary from England, Joanne from the Catskills. Wow, over 4,000 people. I love you guys so much. All right, shall we start this thing? Let me see if I can share my slides here. Let's talk about some science, shall we? Okay. Okay, how do I do this? I go over here. I turn my screen share on. Boom. That should be the psychology and neuroscience of living a bright line life. Can you see it? Can you see the slides? I'm hoping you can see the slides. And from Cairns, Australia. I never made it to Cairns. Deb from Parker, Colorado. So I am going to mute the chat thread. And let's see here. Okay. So we have an external chat thread. An external thread. So here's the thing. We got 4,118 people in this room. 4,130. And what happens when this webinar system has that many people is not everybody can post in the chat thread. So what we do is we create an external page, an external thread, but please don't post in there yet. It's for Q&A, okay? We'll get you that link again. I think, Jen, is the link still available to people? I don't see it anymore. We removed it, yeah? But anyway, we'll give you the link later, and you'll be able to post in this external thread. Someone from my team just told me, can you smooth down your hair a little bit? It looks a little crazy. Yeah, well, I will do that before I go back on camera. I will smooth down my hair. Okay. For now, though, I'm going to mute the chat thread. Here I go, muting the chat thread. The reason I mute the chat thread, I always say this at the beginning of every webinar, is that research shows that when you're multitasking, like flipping your eyes back and forth between a chat thread and the PowerPoint, not only can you not really pay attention deeply, but it kills your enjoyment of the experience. I'm about to present, for a little stretch of time, the psychology and neuroscience of Reboot, Rezoom. And if your attention isn't divided, you'll probably find it to be a really enjoyable experience. You'll enjoy it. It'll be fun. If your attention is divided, research shows, you won't really enjoy the time. So because I value sort of happiness and enjoyment, I kill the chat thread because I don't want you to be tempted like I am always to read the chat thread while we're going. So I've muted the chat thread, and here we go. The psychology and neuroscience of Reboot, Rezoom. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover essentially the psychology and neuroscience of change, but in particular, the science behind what happens when we do bright line eating and we keep our lines bright versus when we break, resume, break, resume, break, resume, break, resume. What's the difference neurologically between those two? In the brain, what's the difference? And psychologically speaking. And then we're going to talk about the Reboot, Rezoom, Free Again system that I presented in video 3 of the masterclass series that's available right now, the Reboot, Rezoom video series. I talked about food and actions and support. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how each of those things creates the changes we're looking for to smooth out our experience in bright line eating, raise the bar up, smooth it out, and be able to resume faster so that we can stay permanently out of the danger and destruction zone. So I'm going to talk about the science behind all that. And the theme that I want you to notice is how integrated the system is. That the different scientific points kind of keep referring back to each other. So something we do in this way impacts this other thing and gives us a boost over there. And then this other thing feeds back into this third thing. And the connections are really profound. You'll see what I mean as I go on. Okay. So first of all, question, how does the brain change when we do bright line eating and we keep our lines bright? So for all of you who've done the boot camp, and or you've started with the 14-day challenge or whatever, and you're like, you know what, this kind of really worked for me. Like, wow, I notice a change right away. It got really easy, really fast. What's going on with the brain in that instance? So the brain, if you don't know, this is just a quick Bio 101 lesson. The brain is made up of these specialized cells that we call neurons, but neuron is just a fancy term for brain cell. And they've got these little parts to them, right? What makes them neurons are these specialized structures that no other cell in the body has, axons and dendrites. Neurons are the only ones that have these things. All cells have a cell body. That's not special. But these dendrites that receive electrical information and these axons that send electrical information, that's what's different about a neuron. And neurons are these specialized cells that can communicate with each other. They send signals to each other. And the signal from one neuron to the next happens actually at this juncture between them called the synapse. It's a little gap between one neuron and the next. This is an electron microscope picture of the synapse. The synapse is the gap actually right here. It's like that little tiny tiny place. In the red here, these are packets with neurotransmitter. These are the mitochondria. I talk about these a lot. Ari Whitten talks about these a lot. These are the energy powerhouses of the cells. Those are super important. But the synapse is right down here. And in the brain, when we talk about rewiring the brain, which is, you know, a catchphrase, everybody's trying to tell you these days how you can rewire the brain. But it's a real thing. It's a real thing. When we change in the brain at the micro level, there's something going on. What we're doing is we're either creating new synapses between neurons, or we're changing the responsiveness of existing synapses. We're strengthening connections, basically, between neurons. Here's a picture, actually, of a place, a juncture between one neuron and the next where there was one connection. This is the tip of an axon here, and this is the tip of a dendrite receiving the connection, and here's one. And then, you know, you sort of do something. These neurons both fire at the same time. They decide to wire together more closely, more strongly, and all of a sudden you've got a second juncture there growing between these two neurons. You've just strengthened a neural connection. And over time, those changes aggregate and they become something called fiber tracts, which are like, you know, there's the different fiber tracts are, you know, colored here in different colors. These are like strong, these are basically habits. These are basically thought patterns. They're born of repetition, and this is the result of rewiring the brain. We also call these neural networks. Here's another schematic of it. And I like to talk about these as riverbeds because we all can kind of, well, first of all, just pictorially, you can kind of see the difference, right? Or not the difference, the similarity, the opposite of the difference, the similarity between, this is again, sort of fiber tracts on a electron slide, like a little slide thing, an electron microscope. And it's a picture of the connections. Now, I like to talk about it as a riverbed because we can imagine energy flowing like water flowing, which is an apt analogy. Electricity flows like water flows. And we can imagine how at first water flowing over dry land is uncertain of itself. It doesn't really have a groove to flow in. And that over time, if you keep letting the water flow in strength in that certain direction, it will groove a riverbed. And that's the best analogy for the formation of habits, the formation of new fiber tracks in the brain. And what doing bright line eating entails is cutting off the flow of the river of the old way of doing things and forcing all that electrical energy to flow in a different direction now. Doing something different day in and day out, and over time letting that create a new riverbed. But you have to keep the dam upstream so that you don't let the water flow into the old direction anymore. That's essentially what we do in bright line eating. Now, at the behavioral level, at the psychological level, as opposed to the level of the brain or neuroscience, what happens is a change in our conditioning patterns. So you've probably heard of Pavlov's dog. And in the late 1800s, this dude in Russia named Ivan Pavlov, he was not a psychologist, he was studying animal behavior, and he just happened to notice that these dogs that he had hooked up to this contraption to sort of measure their saliva, that they exhibited this really weird behavior of salivating before he'd presented the food. And he put two and two together, and he realized that the sound of the assistants approaching, like the click of their heels on the cold floor, told the dogs that they were coming, and they started to salivate in advance. And he started to play with this. He just got fascinated. And he was curious if it really was the sound. So what he did was he tried pairing it with a new sound. He rang a bell and then presented some food. It was actually meat powder that he was feeding these dogs. So he'd ring a bell and then present the meat powder. I actually think it was a tuning fork that he used also. It wasn't really a bell, but we just call it a bell. Whatever, doesn't matter. He played the sound, rang the bell, and then presented the food. And sure enough, over time, the dogs would start to salivate to the bell alone. Now, why do you care? What does this have to do with anything? The conditioning that we're working with in bright line eating has to do with cravings or the desire to eat in various situations. Basically, various cues, which is the impulse to eat. Fight with my spouse, I'm going to go eat. Just got the kids to bed, I'm going to go eat. 9 a.m., driving down the road to work, there's a Starbucks, I'm going to pull in and eat. I feel stressed, I'm going to eat. I feel happy and celebratory, let's go out to dinner, I think I'm going to eat. And Friday night, let's order a pizza, I'm going to eat. Okay, so all of these situations are conditioned in our brains to produce the impulse to eat in every way, the thought, the urge, the craving, and the action. So basically, the cue is like the bell, and the response, the salivation, is the craving, the thought, the behavior of eating. And what we want is something called extinction. We don't want to have that craving, urge, behavior of eating anymore. We want to make that go extinct in those situations. We want to be able to walk into a movie theater and not be pulled toward the snack bar. not even have the thought that I should buy anything at the snack bar now. I'm not eating, I'm going to a movie, right? We want to be able to drive to work without pulling into a Starbucks. We want to be able to put the kids to bed and then go watch TV without the thought of eating ever coming into the picture. We want to be able to feel stressed without needing to eat. We want to be able to celebrate something without feeling like we need to go, eat some sugar, and on and on and on, right? We want the eating part to be out of the picture. We want extinction. Here's a graph of extinction. Basically, extinction exists or happens when you ring the bell a bunch of times and never present the food to the dog. The dog will stop salivating to the sound of that bell. And if you did the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp or you did the 14-day challenge and you started to experience all these different situations without eating, what you experienced was rapid extinction. Very quickly, the thought or the urge to eat just went away in all those circumstances. Kind of miraculously, like, whoa, that was pretty easy. And of course, this results in that feeling of freedom. The feeling of freedom circles back because now you're faced with, all these different circumstances without cravings, without the urge to eat. It's like, whoa, that's easy. Now I'm sticking to my food plan, so I'm losing weight. I feel even better. I'm eating better food, so my mood is elevated. Like happy, thin, and free kind of compounds. It becomes an upward spiral that just feeds on itself. Okay. So now, how is the brain affected when we don't keep our lines bright? And the answer is we lose our freedom really quickly. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like the person going to the slot machine. Now, these little devices are highly addictive. But that's kind of weird because they don't pay out very often, right? You go pull the lever of a slot machine, it's like, yeah, no, you get nothing. You pull it again, nope, no reward. You pull it again, nope, nothing. Nope. Oh, let me see. I might have another quarter in my pocket somewhere. Yep, I got another quarter. Nope, no payout. Nope, no reward. Nope, no reward. Ding, 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 ding. So you never know when it's going to happen, but every now and then these suckers pay out a bunch of money. And the brain goes, whoa, I guess you gotta just keep pulling the lever because you never know when it's going to pay out. And then, so you keep pulling the lever. Nope, 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 nope. So the similarity here is that the little guy here is like our reptilian brain that's saying, I want some food. Can I have some food? Can I have some NMF? NMF is like not my food. That's like candy bar or, popcorn at the movie or whatever. Can I have some food? And our higher self, like our actual part of the brain that decides, is like, no, I do bright line eating. I'm not doing that. Oh, please, can I have some food? No. Oh, how about now? Can I have some food? No. How about now? Can I have some food? No, I don't know. I'm doing bright line eating. I don't do that. Can I have some food now? No. Can I have some food now? No. Can I have some food now? Oh, okay, well, I guess I'll have a little. Ding, 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 ding. It's something called intermittent reinforcement. It's a payoff that only comes sometimes. And when we start to do that with our bright line eating program, what happens is we get something called resistance to extinction. We develop a brain that keeps hounding us for food long after we've stopped mainly not responding because we're sometimes responding intermittently. The brain never knows when you're going to give it that treat. So it's going to keep asking, how about now? How about now? How about now? And giving in once in a blue moon is just about the worst thing you can do for your brain. And then we're eating this NMF, we're eating this food. Our mood plummets because sugar, flour, and omega-6 heavy foods cause depression. Our isolator takes over to keep us protected from any judgment or shame or criticism from the people that we don't want to face and we just want to hide and eat. Our brain thinks we're starving because high insulin and high inflammation lead to leptin resistance, and leptin is the hormone that tells our brain that we've had enough to eat. So when leptin's being blocked, our brains think we're starving, so it's got evolutionary cause for continuing to ask, more food, please, more food, please. Eating feels like the only solace, and we're in the ditch. Okay. So how can Reboot Rezoom help? So Reboot Rezoom is based on this reframe, right? The idea is if we start off some system and do great for a bit, and then we crash and burn and we're in the ditch, and then we restart maybe January 1st next year with a New Year's resolution, and then we're in the ditch. That's one kind of pattern. A lot of us have lived that pattern pretty much our whole dieting lives, right? That's what it looks like. The edges are really sharp because when we're flying high, boy, it's working. It feels great. The weight's melting off. We feel amazing. And then as soon as we fall off track, the what the hell effect kicks in, we crash and burn hard. And the danger and destruction zone is where we're really eating sugar and flour. We're, just our freedom's gone. We're in that, this state, right? That's the danger and destruction zone. The Reboot Rezoom reframe is, the cycles are still going to happen. Now, I just put out a vlog recently called the What the Hell Effect in Advance, and I clarified, I don't mean we keep eating off plan. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Ideally, we don't. Being above, it depends on how high we are on the susceptibility scale. If we're high on the susceptibility scale, then staying out of the danger and destruction zone for us, all us, 8s, 9s, and 10s out there, staying out of the danger and destruction zone means not breaking our bright lines. That's what it means. It's got to. For people who are lower on the susceptibility scale, they can stay out of the danger and destruction zone with occasional deviations. And this is something that makes it very hard for those of us who are high on the scale to sort of keep our mental fortitude, because we've got to live in a world where people, eat whatever with impunity. That's not the way our brain works, right? So there's an identity shift that has to happen for those of us who are really high on the scale to just surrender to the reality that we don't get to stay out of the danger and destruction zone with an occasional deviation. It's not the way our brains work. Be my guest and do your research. I don't recommend it because it's a downward spiral. It feeds on itself. But if you need to prove that to yourself, be my guest. A lot of us around here have done the research for you. Just ask us. It doesn't work. The planned exception you're thinking about, if you're high on the susceptibility scale, it doesn't work. So how does the free again system of Reboot Rezoom create this new reality, that higher curve? Okay. I want to just point out what the higher curve is. It's three things. First of all, there's a shift up. You see this? Look at this, the mountain peaks here, the old way of doing things. Do you see that the average bar here is about at the line of the danger and destruction zone? That's average. And do you see that the average, in terms of happiness and success and whatever, the average of the new way is way higher. It's just frankly shifted up. You see that? And that shift up represents greater happiness, greater well-being, greater flourishing. That's what it is. Okay? So we will know that we've achieved this shift up when we're happier, feeling like we're flourishing, just greater well-being overall. That's the shift up. Okay? It also represents softer edges, right? Not peaks, not pointiness, not harshness, but smoothed edges like that. Okay? The rounding off. The softer edges represent less panic, less anxiety, and more ease. Just saying, this shift up here would represent less depression as well, not just greater happiness, but also less depression. Okay? So softer edges, less panic, less anxiety, and more ease. This peak right here is represented by a panic, like a sympathetic nervous system response, a fight or flight response of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, ACTH, which is a stress hormone, norepinephrine, adrenaline, all flooding into the system to say you are in danger. Your response options narrow, and before you know it, you're on a one-track mind down the shame spiral all the way down the slippery slope. Okay? With less panic, less anxiety, and more ease, it's a softer experience. And that can lead to the third thing, which is a quicker shift in direction when you're on the downslope. So notice that from here down to here is a long distance. You're in free fall for a long time. And on this curve, you are able to catch yourself sooner and start going back up, which requires two things. Awareness, like greater awareness of when you've started on the downslope, and a willingness / ability to change direction. You got it? Two things, greater awareness and then a willingness or ability to shift direction. Okay. So the free again system is food, actions, support. Let's talk about how these things contribute to this new reality. Well, the foods we eat are going to increase our happiness and well-being and soften off the edges. Okay, let me show you how. Basically, the foods we eat are powerfully tied to our moods. Greater happiness, well-being, and flourishing. That's the up part of the arrow, just raising the whole curve up. So here's some research. In 2012, researchers from the University of Warwick and Dartmouth College studied the eating habits of 80,000 people in Britain, and they found a direct correlation between positive mental health and the consumption of vegetables. Basically, the more fruits and vegetables someone ate, the less likely they were to experience mental health challenges like depression or anxiety. Depression, anxiety, you see it? Less depression means raising the bar up. Less anxiety means smoothing over the edges. The happier they were, the more fruits and vegetables they ate, and the strongest effects were up to 7 servings a day. So it's a linear relationship. Another study in 2013 looked at the moods of 281 young folks, and they found an immediate effect. Eating a lot of fruit and vegetables today predicted happier moods tomorrow, like boom, immediate. 7 to 8 servings a day predicted a very happy day the next day. Isn't that interesting? Beyond just vegetables, though, the foods we eat are profoundly linked to our happiness levels. Sugar is a depressant. The less processed junk food someone eats, the happier they are. And there's something also going on with omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, where the optimal ratio between those two is about 1:1, maybe 1:2, omega-3 to omega-6. But if you're eating what the average American eats, the ratio in your diet is about 1:15, maybe even as high as 1:25. That ratio is off. And there's research showing that causes depression. I'm not sure about anxiety, definitely depression. So omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids are different fatty acids, but they're needed in about 1:1 ratios. In particular, inside our cells, these are the membranes of cells. And this lipid bilayer right here, yeah, that's fat. Lipids are fat. And if you're doing autophagy, which is the healing of damaged cellular parts, you better have the building blocks in the ratios you need them in. Otherwise, the cells stay damaged. In particular, the brain, which is mostly made out of fat. That's where this is happening. So you've got to provide the brain with the building blocks it needs and the ratio it needs them. Otherwise, it can't heal itself. And over time, the brain erodes and you get really just bad feeling. Don't feel good. So where's all that omega-6 coming from that we don't want? We do not want it. It's coming from all the vegetable oils, in particular soybean oil, but all those other oils too. And when you're eating stuff with all that oil in it, it means you're eating French fries, crackers, cookies, cakes, all that crapola, basically. Soybean oil. We're eating soybean oil at such high rates in processed foods that an estimated 20% of all calories in the standard American diet are coming from vegetable oils, mostly soybean oil. It's crazy. That's where all the omega-6 is coming from. Mayonnaise, salad dressing, but mostly crackers, cookies, chips, processed foods. So basically, less food coming out of a package means less omega-6, and you bring down those ratios, the brain feels healthy, the brain feels good, you get a better omega-3/6 balance. Booyah. Which means less depression and anxiety, higher mood. So another thing that happens if you stop flooding the brain with sugar, of course, is that the dopamine receptors replenish in the nucleus accumbens, right? So here's the seat of our cravings right there. It's dopamine downregulation, right in that green part. And when the dopamine receptors replenish, we get a brighter outlook, restored hedonic capacity, which basically means you can feel pleasure again at the simple things in life, pleasure at reading a magazine article, sitting down to a cup of herbal tea, having a chat with a friend, like you just feel better. And of course, fewer cravings when the dopamine receptors replenish. The bright line eating way of eating also has a number of features that have been shown by research to increase neurogenesis in the hippocampus. That's the creation of new brain cells, the regeneration of new brain cells right here. The things that increase neurogenesis are the consumption of specific fruits and vegetables. I know blueberries have been shown to do it, broccoli, basically fruits and vegetables. Masticating your food as opposed to drinking your calories. So the more chewing you do, as opposed to straight swallowing with no chewing, the more neurogenesis you have in the hippocampus. Now, neurogenesis is correlated with the production of serotonin in the brain and the lifting of mood, as well as the sharpening of the brain, improved memory, improved cognition, better thinking in general. So better mood, better memory. And that comes from eating well. I think high saturated fat, like eating tons of meat and dairy, decreases neurogenesis. Basically, just about everything in a healthy diet, in the bright line eating way of eating, improves neurogenesis in the hippocampus. And eating that crappy way decreases neurogenesis in the hippocampus. So you want that neurogenesis in the hippocampus for sure. Okay. Now, keep in mind that all these effects are dose dependent, meaning every bright line meal you can eat is better for your brain, for the curves that we're talking about, raising that graph up and smoothing out the edges. Every bright line meal is better than, packing away some NMF. Not my food. Sugar, flour, packaged crap. It's kind of like cigarette smoking. Every cigarette you don't smoke is better for your lungs than smoking a cigarette, right? Like if you're just thinking about your lungs, and I know psychologically when we try to quit smoking, it's like, well, if I've smoked a little, I might as well just smoke today and I'll try to quit again tomorrow. It's like, well, no, for your lung health, the fact that you smoked 2 cigarettes today, it'd be better for your lungs if you stopped and didn't smoke another pack today, right? So the effects are dose dependent. So the Reboot Rezoom framework in general is also going to create a softness that's going to remind you, easy does it, sweetie. Easy does it. Fix a bright line meal. It's better than not. Okay, let's talk about the actions. So when we think about the actions that support our bright line life, one of them is meditation, which is paying attention on purpose in the present moment, acceptance, sitting, and paying attention. And of course, you'll stop paying attention, but then bringing it back, paying attention. This is a picture right here of Jon Kabat-Zinn, just a nod to the creator of the program, the meditation instruction program that has had the most research behind it in the world. And his program has been instituted in hospitals as a treatment for anxiety. Okay. But meditation does other stuff too. It shifts activity to the left side of the prefrontal cortex instead of the right side. This is an EEG scan of the prefrontal cortex of someone in Tibet who just meditates all the time. And this is how profoundly activity is in the left side of his prefrontal cortex as compared with the right side of his prefrontal cortex. Now, the reason this is significant is because we've known for a long, long time that the left prefrontal cortex produces our feelings of happiness and well-being, and the right prefrontal cortex produces our feelings of desperation and depression. If this graph were reversed, the person would be suicidal, like checking into a hospital right now, no longer willing to tolerate another breath. This person is super happy, like, over brimming with well-being. So we want to be thinking about our left to right ratio in the prefrontal cortex, and meditation does that. So if we look at the effects of mindfulness meditation, I just mentioned the left prefrontal cortex activation, which leads to profound mood elevation. There's also all this research from Jon Kabat-Zinn's program that meditation, even just 10 minutes a day, decreases anxiety. Like, it just takes it away. It's so powerful to reduce anxiety. It also decreases activity in the default mode network. Okay. The default mode network is the instantiation of the ego in the brain. It's the instantiation of self-referential thinking that's bordering on neurotic rumination if it gets too intense. And it grips the brain in addictive loops and a self-absorbed focus that keeps us stuck in our addictive patterns, and the kind of, like, folks who get, like, when we get into the mental loop of, like, I can't reach out for support because, basically nobody likes me, everybody hates me, guess I'll go eat worms. That kind of feeling, right? That's the default mode network, and meditation decreases it, which then research shows lifts addictions and makes us feel more connected to other people, to humanity in general, to the earth, to nature, to gratitude, just more connected in that universal woo-woo sense. There's research showing that just the deep breathing that often accompanies meditation is productive of calmness and well-being. So basically, there's research showing that shallow breathing is a feedback loop with stress and anxiety. When you're stressed out, you breathe shallowly. When you breathe shallowly, you become stressed out. So it's a downward spiral. And deep breathing, which of course you can force yourself to do. This is a choice right here, which is a choice we make when we meditate often. There will be at least a deep breath or two in the mix there. is conducive to calmness and well-being, and that becomes a feedback loop too. Calmness and well-being, research shows, is conducive to deeper breathing. So basically, now we've just looked at one action, meditating. Let's just sitting for 10 minutes. That's all, just sitting for 10 minutes. Gives us all three. It lifts our mood, greater happiness, well-being, and flourishing. It softens off the edge because it decreases anxiety and produces more ease, the calmness, the well-being that comes from the deep breathing. And it improves our capacity for awareness, which is one of the two components of the quicker shift in direction. See how integrated things are? But also, there's the gratitude journal, which produces a lift in mood. There's a strong body of research on that. There's writing, which improves awareness and can help remove the blocks so that we're more willing to shift direction more quickly. Little actions that have a big difference. And then all the actions that are tied to improving our food, like writing our food down for the next day, dramatically improves the odds of having a bright line day, which then creates the feedback loop of, giving you all the benefits of having eaten another bright line meal, right? And then maybe 3 for the whole day. And you get all the, immediate boost to your mood the next day. Oh, look, you ate 12 servings of fruits and vegetables today, which is what you do on a bright line day. You eat 12 servings of fruits and vegetables. Well, guess what? The next day you reap the benefits in your mood. You're feeling so much happier. You've just lifted your bar up. Do you see how it's such an integrated system? All right, let's look at support. In the first family reunion, I presented a lot of research on the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve, and it connects the brain to the vital organs, especially the heart, but also the gut and also the lungs, also certain facial muscles. It's a really, really, really important nerve. It's just a connection between the brain and the rest of the body, but certain parts of the body. And the vagus nerve has parasympathetic effects. Hello? Parasympathetic effects. You might not know what that means. I'll tell you right now. Super important. It's the opposite of the fight or flight response. The panic response of the sharp edges of the old way of doing things, that panic, that flood, that's a sympathetic nervous system response. The parasympathetic response is the calmness, it's like the shutting down of the sympathetic response. So no panic, no cortisol flooding into your system, easy does it. It's like the neurological equivalent of bunny slippers and a cup of herbal tea and a hot water bottle and a good book after a conversation with a friend. It's like that's the parasympathetic nervous system in the brain. And when the vagus nerve is active, that's what you get, is parasympathetic effects. Now, vagal tone is the strength of the vagus nerve. How strong is it? And it's measurable. Funny enough, it turns out it's easily measurable by this fluky little thing. The difference between how fast your heart beats when you're inhaling versus exhaling. Is that crazy? So think about this with me. It doesn't actually make sense for your heart to beat equally strongly all the time, because the heart's job is to pump oxygenated blood out to the body. That's its job. It's trying to distribute oxygen throughout the body. And the oxygen comes in from the lungs. You're breathing in through the lungs, right? Now, when you breathe in, there's a bunch of fresh oxygen there. That's when the heart needs to pump. On the exhale, there's no fresh oxygen. The heart may as well take a little rest. And in the healthiest people, that's what the heart does. It beats fast on the inhale and slow on the exhale, which over the course of a lifetime means a lot of saved heartbeats. Like the heart just knows when to take its rest. every exhale. Because it's the vagus nerve that connects the heart up to the brain and the lungs up to the brain, all of that coordination is happening through the vagus nerve. It's the vagus nerve that lets the heart know what the heck the lungs are doing and lets the lungs know what the heart is doing. That's all the vagus nerve. So if you have a strong vagus nerve, your heart basically knows to take its rest on the exhale. So turns out you can measure this really easily in people. I mean, practically with not much more than a stopwatch and a what are those things that, stethoscope? Is that what it's called? You can see I was not trained as a nurse. Yeah. Okay. Now, vagal tone is typically stable throughout life. People who, have really weak vagal tone and are kind of, their hearts are tone deaf to whatever the lungs are doing and so forth. They stay that way throughout life. They tend to be not nice to be around. People who have really strong vagal tone tend to be the folks that have strong social skills and everybody wants to be around, because it turns out the vagus nerve does all kinds of other things that have to do with human connection. But it's typically stable. The vagus nerve is the biological substrate of the S in the free again system, the support, the social support part. It's the body's instantiation. Because what the vagus nerve does is it stimulates facial muscles to enable eye contact and to synchronize facial expressions. It's the thing that allows us to look friendly, approachable, concerned, caring, loving. All those facial muscles, those are controlled by the vagus nerve. It also adjusts the inner ear so you can track another person's voice amidst background noise. It connects your gut, your heart, your brain, your lungs in there too. Huge implications for social connection. Okay. On a health tip, high vagal tone increases the routine efficiency of the heart, beat by beat and breath by breath. It fine-tunes the regulation of internal bodily processes. Okay, pay attention. Like glucose levels and inflammatory responses. Holy smoke-a-doodles. So when we improve vagal tone, it circulates over and improves our glucose response. Okay, can you see the implication there? What's tied in with our glucose response? Our insulin response. More insulin sensitivity means what? More leptin availability to the brain, which means less hunger. And likewise, a better inflammatory response, like lower inflammation in general, like a more fine-tuned inflammatory response, again means better leptin sensitivity. Which means if we improve vagal tone through social connection, we now are improving our leptin resistance, which means the brain stops thinking we're starving and it stops hounding us to eat. Vagal tone also predicts the strength of your immune response, in case you care about not getting sick so much anymore. And it predicts how long you're likely to live, in case that matters to you too. Awesome. Okay, so what we're talking about here is an upward spiral. Vagus nerve strength creates an upward spiral where the more you connect with others in the moment, right here, right now, the stronger your vagus nerve becomes. The more attuned you become to the readings of your heart and your gut, which means your intuition becomes better. This has bright line eating implications, right? Like, how do you know when you need to modify your program and when you need to just follow the effing plan? Like, what's really your highest self and what's your food controller? What's really your highest self wanting some genuine, healthy alone time, and what's your isolator? The better your vagal tone, the wiser you will become at stewarding your bright line eating program in those subtle ways. The stronger your vagal tone, the better your inner ear and facial muscles translate your sympathy and care to others, the more attuned you become to their facial expressions, the deeper your connections with others become, and it's a feedback loop. All that changes the stronger your vagus nerve becomes. So like I said earlier, vagal tone is typically stable throughout life, but turns out it can be increased through certain practices. I'm going to show you a practice that was shown to improve vagal tone, and I think you'll see how things that we do in bright line eating are likely to have the same kind of impact. Okay, in 2009, study participants in the Positive Emotions and Psychophysiology Lab, the PEP lab at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, under the direction of Barbara Fredrickson, who's an amazing psychologist and researcher in the positive psychology movement. She took a bunch of participants, brought them in for an initial visit, and she measured their vagal tone. Like I said before, stopwatch and stethoscope, like just listening to their heart and their breathing and just tracking how many heartbeats on the inhalation versus the exhalation. I mean, there's machines that do it, but I mean, they didn't really use a stopwatch. You know what I mean? Then, for several weeks, participants logged on to a website and entered their emotions and their social connections that day. That was for baseline. So she got a sense of their mood on average and how many social connections they had on average. And then came the intervention, which was simply this. She took randomly half of the subjects and instructed them to do some nighttime journaling. Super simple, 2 to 3 minutes. Here was the task. Call to mind the 3 longest social interactions of your day and think about it. How true, on average, in aggregate, over all 3, how true is it that during these social interactions, I felt in tune with the people around me? And during these social interactions, I felt close to the person or people. Noticing, do I feel in tune? Do I feel close? That's all. Not even a really targeted measurement, right? Because you're not even doing it person by person over the 3. You're just saying in aggregate. It's so simple. It's tick, tick. And it was on a scale from 1 to 7. That's it. So, I mean, to say this took 3 to 5 minutes is probably an exaggeration. It probably took once they got into the habit of it, it probably took 30 seconds. So they just did that nightly logging, just a little awareness, just a little noticing. And the results were just tracking their connections each night through this very simple 2 to 3 minute exercise increased the number, the frequency, and the depth of the social connections throughout the day. Look at the power of measuring and monitoring. Do you see why I beat the drum of measuring and monitoring as strongly as I do? In bright line eating, it's so important to just have a habit of tracking. That nightly checklist, yeah, I know it's a tick box. It's not a deep process. It still has value. It still is worth it. Put pen to paper and notice. What am I doing? Think back through your day. And then look at this. Just doing that simple reflection on their social support increased their vagal tone. Something that other research shows in general never changes. But oh look, it does if you pay attention to your social connections. On my nightly checklist right now, I've got a tick box for I called my bright line eating sponsor today. I've got another tick box for I made blank number of bright line eating phone calls today. I don't count my sponsor call in that number. And then I've got another tick box for I talked with someone from my Gideon Games team today. If you don't know what the Gideon Games are, don't worry about it. It's a Bright Lifers thing. You'll get access to the Gideon Games when you get into Bright Lifers. But 3 things that make me notice and call to mind those social connections. So remember that vagal tone has parasympathetic effects. That's what's going to create smoothing off the edges. Softer edges mean less panic, less anxiety, more ease. Another experiment by Steve Cole, who's a professor of medicine and biobehavioral sciences at UCLA. He does research, crazy, computational bioinformatics to map the biological pathways by which social environments influence gene expression. So I'm going to tell you about a research study that he did, I think it was back in 2007, on gene expression. Okay, so in this study, he found 14 older adults who differed significantly in their subjective reports of isolation. So these are people who said, from their own perception, like their subjective sense of their lives, that they felt pretty socially connected, like very socially connected, or that they felt really lonely and isolated, socially disconnected. That's consistently over a span of 4 years. He found people who were steadily super connected or super isolated over 4 years. Then he scanned their DNA, their whole genome, all 23,000 genes, and they used a heat plot to see the genes' fingerprints of which genes were expressing and making proteins. And what they found by comparing the sets to each other, like the 8 people versus the 6 people, was that there were 200 genes that showed clear systematic differences in gene expression between the lonely and the connected people. Some of the genes were downregulated and some were upregulated. So I'm going to show you what the heat plots look like. Each row in this is a person and each column is a gene. So here are the lonely people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lonely people and all their genes. And here are the socially connected people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and all their genes. And you can see these are the 200 genes that on average are really different, okay? The red means high gene expression. These genes are making proteins to beat the band. Now, proteins are the catalysts in our bodies. They're the things that cause reactions to happen. They basically regulate our entire body. So it's not a trivial thing to say that these proteins are being expressed. That's what genes do, is they make proteins. Black is intermediate and green is low. These genes, the green ones, they're being suppressed. So what are these genes and what do they do is the important question, right? So over here, these genes, this set right here, this 131 genes, they're the genes for our immune response. And green is suppressed and red is overexpressed. These are the genes that regulate your immune system. Socially connected people don't get sick as much as lonely people. And these over here are the genes for inflammation. High inflammation leads to heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, and leptin resistance. So if you're lonely, high inflammation leads to leptin resistance, leads to your brain thinking you're starving and forcing you to eat and gain back your weight. If you're socially connected, your brain can see your leptin, you feel like moving, you feel great, you don't feel like eating, and your weight stays off. Now, I mentioned resistance to extinction before, right? Like if you've been breaking your bright lines. The good news is I looked online for a paper on the actual graph of resistance to extinction. This is a crystal vaser, basically. This is what the crystal vaser got when they started the boot camp, and really quickly, because they just never deviated, their cravings went down. And in all these different circumstances of life, their brain stopped hounding them for more food. The thought, maybe you should eat now. Maybe you should eat now. How about you go eat that? How about you go eat that? It just went away really fast. Now, in those of us who've broken our bright lines in certain circumstances, periodically, we've created a brain that's resistant to extinction. And here's what that graph looks like. It means we're going to tough it out. We're going to have to tough it out over more time. Now, I just want to say, this is a graph of perfect bright lines in both cases now. This is once you've created the brain that's resistant to extinction, but then you never reinforce it again. This is how much longer you have to wait for the cravings to go away. They still will, and they will start going away right away. But, a couple weeks later, your brain's still saying, yeah, maybe you should eat now. A little bit, right? Maybe you should eat now. This is, over 200 trials. How many days do you have to drive to work without your brain saying, maybe you should stop at Starbucks? Well, it goes down, but under stressful conditions, it's still going to crop back up. Okay? So I just want to say all is not lost. If you've created a brain through breaking your bright lines where there's a lot of resistance to extinction on board, and then you put the plug in the jug, like you stop eating off plan, you can get free again. It just takes more time. This is the miraculous feeling at the beginning of oh my goodness, my brain just switched, like flipped a switch, like it just flipped, right? And all of a sudden, it's just easy. It's been easy since almost the beginning, right? This is what a lot of people report. Well, you can get there. You just need to be a little bit more robust, which means you're going to have to work a stronger program to sort of navigate this period of time. Okay. So I hope you got a sense of how different actions in various domains create the lift and the softening and the resilience that are characteristic of the Rezoom framework. And I just want to end quickly with outlining the Reboot Rezoom program. Registration opened yesterday. Is that right? Yesterday? Wow, gosh, it's been such a period of time here. And yeah, I'm not going to belabor this. I'm just going to breeze through it really quickly. And we already have more people in the course than I thought we'd get, and registration is supposed to stay open for another 6 days. I don't know if we're going to manage that. We will see. If you want a seat, I recommend you grab a seat. But we are going to do our maiden voyage of the Reboot Rezoom program. It's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to hold your hand through a deeper, more nuanced exploration of the food, the actions, and the support on a deepening level. Let's just go through the program real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and then we're going to do Q&A. I'm going to stay here in Q&A. I can't promise whoever on my team that I'm going to get my hair straightened out. But let's see here. Where is... All right. Okay. So you should see on the right now, it's time to get happy, thin, and free. Secure your spot now. Okay. Now I'm just going to go through the program real quick. And included in the Reboot Rezoom program is the Getting Started module. If you already registered for the course, you've already maybe even been through that. I bet some of you have already completed it. And what happens next in the course is an identity and inquiry inventory. I invite you to take a look at your Bright Line Eating program. What have you been doing for real, for real? How has it worked for you? How has it not worked for you? Where's your resistance to certain things? What do you think that's about? I hold your hand through asking some questions and just shining the light. Remember Barbara Fredrickson's research on vagal tone, just asking people to look. How many connections, if you look at your 3 longest connections, did you feel in tune? Did you feel close? Like you just look. It's amazing the power of shining the flashlight. And then through a series of 66 daily videos, like if you've done the 14-day challenge, you're familiar with what it feels like to wake up in the morning and have a video from me for the day. I'm going to do that for 66 days and gradually walk you through the food, the actions, and the support, guiding you in looking, tweaking, getting honest, looking again, circling back, and it's going to be like a spiral. It's going to be nuanced. It's going to be more tailored to you. This isn't the boot camp of like, here's what everybody does. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Do this, do this, do this, do this. Because I know you've been, if Reboot, Rezoom is your course, it's because you've done bright line eating before. This is not a course for beginners. This is a course for people who've done the boot camp before. Now, if you're a beginner, I believe if you click secure your spot now, you will get taken to a choice where you could choose the boot camp. That's where you want to go if you're a brand new beginner. Let me just take a moment to mention that if you want to do the boot camp right now because you're a beginner, I have created a bonus package for the boot camp that's only for right now, meaning only for this registration week of Reboot Rezoom, December 28th to January 3rd. And the bonus package includes 3 things. It includes a special Reboot Rezoom module to explain how the free again system can be applied as you're doing the boot camp. Like, how do you do that? How do you keep the reframe in mind as you go through the boot camp to inoculate you against future crashes? Number 2, some coaching calls with me. 2 live group coaching calls with me. I don't do boot camp coaching calls anymore. I haven't done them in a couple years. But for you, I will. And number 3 is at the end of the Reboot Rezoom course, which is right about the time that you're going to be ending your boot camp, I'm going to poll all my Rezoomers and ask them, what are the top things? What's the thing that you wish someone had said to you or you could go back in time and say to yourself as you ended your boot camp? You're a veteran, you're experienced, and maybe you slid off track. What is the number one thing that you wish you could go back and say to yourself as you ended the boot camp? And I'm going to aggregate those into the 10 keys of Reboot Rezoomers. And I'm going to create a webinar for my boot campers to say, here's the wisdom of your future self whispering back in time to your ear. Keep in mind the following, the top 10 lessons from seasoned veterans. If you want that bonus package, go sign up for the boot camp. If you're a veteran and you've been slipping and sliding, or you just want to deepen your program, then Reboot Rezoom is for you. And you can click secure your spot now. Okay, so the free again system, back to the PowerPoint here. Whoops. Let me see here. Hold on. Sorry, I just lost my way in my PowerPoint. It just showed me. I thought I'd closed all these other things down. Hold on. Sorry. There we go. I think I'm back. Okay. Sorry, that was weird. It just took me into a PowerPoint time warp. Okay, so the free again system is those 66 days of daily videos. Now, that is going to go along with some hand-holding around piercing the perfectionist bubble. I've created a system and that's going to interact with those 66 days. Because can you picture it? Most people are not going to watch all 66 videos. Something's going to happen. Traveling, a cruise. Oh, dog has to be taken to the vet, all morning with an emergency, or whatever. And you miss the video. And can you picture how the old way of doing things is to let that snowball into not watching them anymore? Or because you feel like you got to catch up, but you don't have time to watch now 2, 3, 4 videos, so you keep not watching them. So I'm going to hold your hand through just watching today's video. It's okay to just start today. There's going to be several practice points through different parts of the course where I'm going to shine a light on your tendency toward perfectionism. We all have it. And hold your hand through doing it differently. I'm going to have modules on the science of food, the science of action, and the science of support. You got a taste of that here. These will be more in depth. And then the measure and monitor module to find a way of tracking your bright line eating journey that works best for you. In this webinar here, you got a taste of how powerful it is to just monitor and track things. And the super support package, including our private online connection and conversation community, the Rezoom house, access to 3 special interest groups, including one for men, anyone who's had bariatric surgery, and anyone who has had or currently struggles with eating disorder behavior, including purging or restricting. And then your weekly customized care coaching calls. There's going to be a lot of coaching support in this program because we know that a lot of people are signing up, and my team and I are already in conversation about how do we provide enough support. And your ongoing Reboot Rezoom buddy list. I'm going to walk you way, way, way more than I did in the boot camp. I'm going to walk you through creating your support. And that's one of the bonuses. So I have several bonuses for you for Reboot Rezoom. The food prep time saver system, which is going to highlight the food prep methods that are best for someone who's super busy and best for someone who's super stressed. And then the food prep systems that, if you're retired, you got a lot of time on your hands. The food prep systems, if you prefer, that will work fine with that kind of lifestyle. 4 Rezoom roadmaps. Oh, I misspelled Rezoom. And a mindfulness meditation for beginners course by Monique Rhodes. So if you haven't ever developed a steady meditation practice, Reboot Rezoom has a bonus that will help you learn to meditate. If you just give us 10 minutes, we will get you meditating with no pain, no fuss. So easy. And then this is the bonus that helps you build your support system. This is way deeper than anything I offer in the bootcamp. It's my custom successful support system. It's a bonus that walks you through a series of experiments tailored to help you watch and see the types of support that actually work for you. I'm going to help you put your experimenter hat on and then see what types of support have what impact, so you can craft a support structure that works for you. This will help pierce your isolator bubble, right? Because your isolator tries to tell you, oh yeah, we don't need that support. But when you actually do the research, you'll see what impact it has. But Everett Considine is going to do a masterclass with me on identifying your isolator and how to help if you have an isolator that keeps pulling you away from the support that would give you what you need to stay on your bright lines. And then the Crush Cravings course, which I know a lot of people really struggle with cravings. And I got a course for you that's going to help crush those cravings. The investment for Reboot Rezoom is $497. You can do a payment plan. For Bright Lifers, it's $397. If you're a Bright Lifer, don't click the button here. You need to go to the Bright Lifers website and register from the banner on the Bright Lifers website. Okay? And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you give Reboot Rezoom a try and it doesn't work for you for any reason at all, you can have 100% of your money back. Okay, let's go ahead now and do questions. Okay, I found a rubber band, so whoever it was on my team that was like, Susan, smooth out your hair. It looks crazy. Give me a second. Let me see if I can do something you will approve of. No promises. Okay, hold on. All right, I enabled the chat thread. I don't know if you noticed that. And I suspect that we have, we have reposted the link. See at the top of the chat thread, it says, if you are unable to access the chat room, you can submit your questions here. We ask that you flag your question as a question. Meaning you hover over it and you mark it with the red, like mark as a question. That will help us tremendously. Please do that for us. Yeah, no, my hair still looks crazy. Okay. Everyone will have to just deal with it. That's just the way it is. Okay. Irina Lee is here. Norway's in the house. Hey, Irina. Okay. So, yeah, any questions? Any questions? Zach, am I the only dude? I'm special. Zach, you are special. In bright line eating, dudes are always special, for sure. Sam wants to know, does the food plan change in Reboot Resume? Nope. Nope, nope, nope. We give you access to all the different, we have different food plans in bright line eating. Like, just we've done the work for you. If you want to modify it to be whole food plant based or paleo or grain free or whatever, we've got versions of the food plan for all that. But we have that in the boot camp also, but not in the book. So if you've only experienced bright line eating from the book, then you would have access to food plans. It's really the same food plan. It's just tweaked a little bit for those different things. Will this course work for someone who totally stopped the bright line eating program? Yeah, it will. How will this program help someone who's been doing bright line eating for years? Debbie, your question got cut off. I don't know if you want to go back in there and fill it out, but how will this program help someone who's been doing bright line eating for years, only made it to within 10 pounds of goal, and have compromised integrity? Yeah, well, bright line, the Reboot Resume, Debbie, is going to walk you through tightening up your program with a keen eye to like, where's your resistance, right? Like, you fell off, why, right? Sometimes the resistance is about something, right? Can you do both? No, Tony, don't do both. Don't do both. The boot camp, if you're new, do the boot camp and just dive into it. Really do it. The boot camp works on its own for a lot. Like the boot camp will get you there. If you focus on the boot camp, what happens is I warn people at the end of the boot camp who are feeling really free, really like amazing. And I warn them, don't take that for granted. Stay on this path. Join Bright Lifers. Keep on the mothership. And then, what happens is their saboteur convinces them that they don't need to do that and they fall off track. And then Reboot Resume can help. I'm trying to let's see here. Is that a little better? Maybe a little bit. How long are the daily videos, wants to know Noelle. Well, it depends. They vary. I'm going to try not to make them too long, but you know me, I'm a talker. Okay, so even if Robin wants to know, even if you know the Reboot Resume framework fits you, if you've never done bright line eating, you need to start with the boot camp. Correct. Yes, you want to start with the boot camp. I mean, we don't disallow you from signing up for Reboot Resume, but Reboot Resume assumes familiarity with the basic structures of bright line eating, and Reboot Resume is not going to be the course that's most helpful. I created these courses. I ask you to trust me. I know what will be more helpful for you. If you're brand new, the boot camp is the course that's going to pour your foundation. In Reboot Resume, I'm going to be assuming that we need to tweak things, help you look deeper, find your resistance. None of that's really, it's not what you need right now. If you haven't done bright line eating, you need to do the boot camp. What is the average time per day this program will require, and how long are the daily videos? Well, truth in advertising, I haven't created the daily videos yet. I'm going to create those as the course unfolds with you. I'm creating this course like I always have as a professor. I was a tenured professor. Let's see, I taught at the college and university level for 13 years. I probably created 12 different courses from scratch, and I always create them. The first time I teach a course, I create it as the semester unfolds. The second time through, I tweak it a little bit, but not that much. And then the third time, I just wash, rinse, repeat. So this is the time that I'll be creating this course. So not a single one of those daily videos are recorded. I'm going to create them in dialogue. It's going to, a first time teaching a course is it's like a conversation. It's like I watch how my students are doing and what they need, and it unfolds. So I'm going to try not to make the daily videos too long because I know people's time is, scarce. Janeth says, so which one do I choose if I've only done the 14-day program and I've followed it for 3 months? Janeth, you're right in the, like, you could do either one zone. So I would say do the one that you feel most called to do. Nina says, how do I become more sociable? I'm an introvert and I find it hard to ask for support. The Reboot Rezoom program is going to be so helpful for you. It's going to be the antidote to that. That my custom successful support system bonus, it's going to walk you through exactly what it takes. And I'm a little bit of a ninja at creating structures that that help in that case. I see what someone on my team means. Let's see if I can. There we go. Is that better? Yeah. All right. Like, your hair looks crazy. So silly. Okay. If I take an antidepressant, how do I go forward? One day at a time, taking your pill. I mean, talk to your doctor. But what happens for a lot of people after they've been steadily on bright line eating for a while is that they talk to their doctors and they can get off their antidepressants. Sorry, moving my light here. But don't do that without your doctor's support. So I would say get on bright line eating, stay on it steadily for a while, and then see how you feel. Suzanne, does the vagus tone cause my nose to run when I am relaxed? That's an interesting question. I don't know that I know enough anatomy and physiology to know the answer to that question. So parasympathetic nervous system effects do relax, like, I don't know enough about how the ear, nose, and throat sort of canals connect to sympathetic versus parasympathetic effects. I find that question really funny. I don't actually know the answer. I'm sorry. Barbara says, what if you're going away for a month? A month is a long time, Barbara. I wouldn't sign up for a course if you're going away for a month. I would wait until after. And I'm sorry about that. That means that Reboot Rezoom is not going to be available right away when you get back. It will be available. Piecemeal, like evergreen, like in, whenever they want to, basically. We're hoping to create it evergreen at some point in 2019, but I don't know when. But I would not sign up for one of the bright line eating courses if you're going to be away for a month. On the other hand, Susan says, I'll be cruising for a week in January, and ships have terrible and expensive internet. Yes, they do. Will I be able to catch up? Yeah, a week will be okay. Yeah, I wouldn't do a month. Christina says, when does the Reboot Rezoom course start? It's started. No. Sorry. There is content already in the course. So if you register right now, you click on that button and you register, you get inside the course, there's stuff there. But there's an introductory kickoff call on Sunday, January 6th. And the next day, Monday, January 7th, you'll have your first daily video in your inbox. So I guess technically, officially, the course starts January 6th, but there's stuff for you to do between now and then. And as a matter of fact, there's some deep inquiry work for you to do through that identity and inquiry inventory that I mentioned. Sam says, I'm just finishing last week of boot camp. I'm unsure whether I'm too new for Reboot. I would say, Sam, the question is, are you struggling? If you're struggling, then do Reboot Rezoom. If you're not struggling and you're doing pretty well, I would say go into Bright Lifers and just dive into Bright Lifers. There's so much available for you on Bright Lifers. At the end of your boot camp, Sam, you'll get an invitation to join Bright Lifers, and that's where you want to be. If you haven't been struggling, like really wonky with your lines, then just do Bright Lifers. Noel says, is it true that you will not have continual access to the Rezoom modules after the program is over, like the boot camp, just 6 months? Yeah. So 6 months after the end of the course. And that's true of Brightline Freedom, Brightline Mind, all of our additional courses. You get 6 months of access after the course ends. But here's the deal. Once you've done the course, we don't make you pay full price for it again. If you want to do it again in the future, it's a nominal investment. So it's actually helpful to like when you do the course to be all in and do it. Is the meditation bonus course different from the bootcamp meditation module? Yes, Laura, it is. The bootcamp one is an investment. This one is a bonus. You get it for free as part of the course, and it's a weekly recording. And yeah, it's custom made for this. For Reboot Rezoom. So they're different tracks. Do we get to download videos and resources, or does it just go away in 6 months? I think you can download them. Jen, do you know the answer to that? I think you can download them. And Jen, maybe could you ask Stephen and just double check, are things being put into the Reboot Rezoom course website in a way that they could be downloaded? Okay. Oh, Jen says nope. Oh, don't know. Let me ask. Oh, not nope. Nope, don't know. I should have waited for her to finish typing. Your susceptibility scale, does that mean some of us can eat some sugar and return to sanity easier than others? Interesting concept. How do you measure this? Yeah, Laura, go to foodfreedomquiz.com and read the instructions really carefully. You're asked to think of a time in your past, a 3-month stretch of time when your eating was at its worst, and answer the questions as if it was then, okay? And I would say in general that like people who are 1 to 5 on the susceptibility scale tend to be able to eat sugar and flour and stuff without huge hits to their freedom. And people who are 6 and above tend not to be able to do that as much. It also, there's some interaction of how much weight they have to lose. Funny enough, some people who are low on the susceptibility scale have a lot of weight to lose, and Brightline eating can really be helpful for them because it can be really hard to lose weight in this day and age. So yeah, go take the quiz, Laura. Yeah. Becky says, any advice on how to deal with being around and needing to prepare and taste food? How can I cope with being in the food business? I hit an obstacle reconciling my Brightline eating mindset and my life in growing and preparing food. So Becky, this is a tricky one. Here's what I've seen. I have seen someone succeed at this way of life. He's not in Brightline eating. He's in the 12-step food program that I was in for 11 years. Like a really, really, I would say rigid and exacting 12-step program that does no sugar, no flour, weight measured food, 3 meals a day, and so forth. And he's been eating that way for almost 12 years. And he's maintaining about a 200-pound weight loss. He was 385 pounds when I met him in October of 2006. And I looked him in the eye and I said, go buy a digital food scale tonight. Bed Bath & Beyond is still open. And he was just so morbidly obese, 385 pounds, swollen knees, and he looked so scared. And he owns and operates a family restaurant. His parents or grandparents maybe founded it, and he and his sister run it. And it's his life. He works in that. It's a hotel restaurant combination, and he works there 7 days a week. And he doesn't break his lines. He doesn't break his food plan. And his identity, he works a very, very strong program, and his identity is really deep. And he doesn't taste food ever. He serves it, and he makes it from recipes. He doesn't taste it ever. His sister will taste the food if it needs tasting. And he keeps his clarity around that stuff. So Becky, if you wanted to do Reboot, Rezoom, you could get some coaching. You know, it might be around like, where's your highest self calling you? Is it to stay in this profession? Is it not? Is it to really do bright line eating? Is it not? But here's what I know. Really living happy, thin, and free with bright line eating, if you're high on the susceptibility scale. I don't know how high you are on the susceptibility scale, Becky. If you're high on the scale, it requires a deep identity shift. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to leave your profession. It means you need to have a strong talk with yourself, though. You're in this profession, why? Are you called to stay there? Then you need to pony up and work the kind of program that would allow you to do bright line eating anyway. You see what I'm saying? It's not necessarily an either-or decision, but it does mean that if you want to do bright line eating and you're really high on the susceptibility scale and you want to stay in the food business, it's an extra layer. You know, let me just actually liken this to my situation. It's like the shift that I had to make that finally pulled me out of a 3-month period of breaking my lines. It's like, look, Susan, you want to keep leading this bright line eating movement and doing it the way you're doing it, hopping on a plane to travel here and there, to speak, to, you know, do mastermind groups, to whatever. Well, that level of stress requires a higher level of support. Are you going to work the level of program you need to work to keep the cushion to make your bright line eating program function? Or aren't you? Right? It's like, Susan, you can keep doing this. You can keep living this big life, you know, with the restaurants and the travel and the jet lag and the time zones and the shooting videos all night and all this stuff. But if you're going to do that, you're going to keep breaking your lines unless you up your game. Do you see it, Becky? It's like, for me, this, what leading the bright line eating movement requires of me, it was a clear choice. Like, I'm not leaving this profession. It's my calling. I'm doing this. Well, then I need to work a program that allows me to do it with Bright Lines Bright. Okay. All right. Myrna says, how do we obtain, for those of us who are bright lifers and feel good about what we're doing, how do we obtain the different ways of planning food for hectic lifestyles or more laid back? I do not wish to take the Reboot Rezoom course for just finding out the idea for food preparation for busy people. Will you answer this question on the coaching call since I'm a bright lifer? Sure, of course. When does boot camp begin? Beth wants to know. Beth, boot camp begins the minute you register. So boot camp is you register for the course and then you get a getting started process and it just holds your hand right through. You can begin your boot camp today. I already signed up. And I was a bit disappointed to see that for experiment 1 on phone calls, there were only 5 other people in Australia that had posted their phone numbers. I don't have an international calling plan. So how can I make more phone connections given the geography? Well, Kendra, how about you get an international phone card? I did. I lived in Australia for 2 years and I made calls back to America almost every day for my food program. There are calls where it's like, you know, less, it's like 1 or 2 cents a minute. So you make a 10-15 minute phone call to somebody and you spend 30 cents or something. So how about you go get yourself an international phone card? Is this available in monthly installments? Wants to know D. Oh, and Kendra, by the way, more people will be registering from Australia. And you could ask some of those folks in Australia if you can call them and say, hey, have you been doing bright line eating before? Are you a bright lifer? Do you know other people in Australia? And you could get phone numbers that way. Yeah, D, it is available in 3 monthly installments. Meredith says, having some fear of missing out moments, FOMO moments. Just finished the boot camp in early December and joined Bright Lifers, so I'm not certain I'm ready for this course. Will the same bonuses be available when the course is offered a second time? Yeah, Meredith, you'll be fine, sweetie. Just follow your path, and I get the fear of missing out, of course. But it'll pass. It'll pass. Don't do it if it's not right for you. And the good news is, when it is right for you, you'll be so grateful. You'll be so grateful. You'll be fine. If you started boot camp but did not complete it, you did it for 4 or 5 weeks, is Reboot Rezoom still okay? Yeah, I'll leave that to you, Kathy, whether you feel you'd be best served by really doing the boot camp this time or doing Reboot Rezoom. I'll leave that to your choice. Barbara says, will the daily videos be replayed for those of us who cannot tune in at the time each one is offered? The videos aren't going to be live, Barbara. They're going to be recordings that you can access at any time you want. So yeah, everything in the course will be available at your convenience at the time you want to play it. I won't be able to join until the last day of registration, just for financial reasons, January 3rd. I'm afraid there won't be any room left at that point, Sinead. Sinead, if that happens to you, sweetheart, just go right to support.brightlineeating.com. Just go to the website, support.brightlineeating.com, and explain to them. I've trained my team to have bleeding hearts and to try never to disappoint anybody that writes in. So we'll take care of you. Work is going into super duper stressful mode due to a coworker out for months due to injury. Is now a good time to start? I assume you mean start Bright Line Eating, Noelle, with the boot camp. It's kind of up to you, Noelle. It's like, yeah, the boot camp you do want to be able to like carve out some space, give yourself put on your bunny slippers. Easy does it. But at the same time, starting Bright Line Eating is kind of like having a baby. There's no good time. You know what I mean? Like life is, really, if it's not this, it's something else, right? So I'm going to leave that to you because I could see that one both ways. Like sit quietly and just ask deep inside, what's the next right thing? Do I do this now? Trust yourself. Can a brain that is resistant to extinction be changed to one that is not? Says Paula. Yeah, so do you remember the curves that I showed you at the very end there? The one that dropped steeply and then the one that was resistant to extinction? The one that was resistant to extinction, if you stop giving it the reward, you stop eating off plan, it's just a longer time where you have to deal with a brain that's still asking you to eat, on and off. But notice that the cravings go down pretty dramatically even right away for that kind of brain. So yes, it can be. Which essentially means, folks, that a crystal vase can be recreated even after it's been smashed. Like I've smashed my crystal vase so many freaking times. I have one again. So there's always hope. There is always hope. No brain is broken beyond repair. There is always hope. I promise. How long does it take generally to heal the brain and get rid of the cravings? How many bright line days? So if you remember that curve, Tracy, it improves right away. Different brains respond differently and are damaged to different extents. I have one of the worst brains I've ever seen for this stuff. I noticed at the worst, which was in Australia right after I went from a size 4 to a size 24 in 3 months, I noticed a significant turning point at about 3 weeks. At about 21 days, I noticed that things felt significantly easier. It's a gradual thing. It's kind of like asking, when does water flowing over dry land create a riverbed? And it's like, well, one day at a time. And every day that that water flows, it's a deeper riverbed, right? At what point do you declare that you now have a riverbed? You know, the brain heals through each daily action that we take differently. Natasha says, how can I change my brain from being an 8 or 10 on the susceptibility scale to a lower number? You can't, which means you're going to have to accept the things you have to do to take care of your brain because you're higher on the susceptibility scale. Now, you can change what it feels like to live in the world as an 8 or a 10 on the scale. You can live happy, thin, and free as if you're a 1 or a 2 on the scale. Like no cravings, finish a meal, hardly think about it, hardly think about food till the next meal. However, if the reason you'll still be an 8 or a 10 is because if you stop doing the things that work to make your brain ease up on you, you will immediately be back to the old way, the old state of affairs. It comes rushing back. All the cravings, all the weight gain, all the everything. And then it gets worse at that point. So if you're an 8, you'll get pushed up to a 10 over time through doing that. So this is one of the things that people higher on the scale kind of learn through hard experience, is you never get to rest on your laurels. And complacency is really tempting and tricky. Like it's really easy to get complacent. Rachel says, if you never break the sugar or flour line, but have intermittently broken the meals or quantities line, how does that affect resistance to extinction? Rachel, what happens is you create a brain that hounds you for the things it knows you'll give in on. So now it's hounding you to eat outside meals and to eat more food. And when you stop giving in on those things, it'll stop hounding you for those. Karen says, your teeth are so white. Is that from bright line eating too? I'm not being cheeky, I'm serious. My teeth are not as white as they look. It's all smoke and mirrors. I don't know why they look so white right now. I actually have really bad coffee stains on my teeth. It's a weird artifact of the light. I do sometimes do the teeth whitening stuff in the trays or whatever, but then I drink black coffee and they get yellow again. So I don't know why they look so white right now. It's, whatever. It's the camera. In the experiment about monitoring social connection, or in general, does it matter if it's in person, over the phone, over chat, over Facebook, etc.? It does, actually. In person is the best. Phone, live, on the telephone is second best by far. And other methods are far less effective. Text, Facebook, other methods are far less effective. The most effective is on like live, either live where you have eye contact or in real time with a human being conversing. What do people do who are mid-range, i.e. a 4, says Paula? Well, if they don't have weight to lose, they don't do bright line eating and they go on with their lives and they're already happy, thin, and free. If they have weight to lose and they really want to lose it, and they're up for it, they can do bright line eating and get that weight off. And then in the boot camp, there's a module that talks about the 4 questions, which is a process for figuring out when you can add, like how you can add back in certain things that you had eliminated before, and test and see if you're able to stay happy, thin, and free with those things in the mix or not. Okay. I've read the book, says Kimberly, and followed the bright line eating ways, but I've started and stopped several times, but I've never done a boot camp. Should I do Reboot or the boot camp? I would do the boot camp with that profile. That would be my suggestion. Marika says, I have specific health concerns and would love support customizing my food plan for this. Can we do this in the course? So the course comes with coaching support. Reboot Rezoom comes with coaching support. And if so none of us are doctors or, medically trained to help you. We're not nutritionists. Like, that's not our role is to like, but if you just want our bright line eating expertise and you bring an understanding of, the medical or, like what specific things you can eat or not eat, yeah, we can hold your hand through helping you craft a bright line eating food plan that would fit those constraints. Sure. Amy B, does atrial fibrillation affect vagal tone? Are the slides available for downloading or viewing after the webinar? The slides are not available. And I think, I'm not exactly sure about this, but I think atrial fibrillation is a temporary pattern interrupt, and vagal tone is like, what's the heart doing the rest of the time? Rajani says, what if you have social anxiety about calling or connecting in person? That is natural, and it means you're going to have to work a little bit harder than someone who doesn't have that social anxiety. And really pay more attention to the identifying your isolator module, because social connection is imperative. And it's probably been extra hard for you to identify what's your isolator and what's your highest self, like making appropriate allowances because of your social anxiety. Marika says, Susan, I've signed up. A lot of my support actions have slipped over time, and now the food is slipping too. I'm guessing the course will be perfect for me? Yes, Marika, exactly. Exactly. And good to see you, even though I can't see you, but I know who you are. Laura says, is the Reboot Rezoom Facebook house a house closed to just those doing the course? Yeah, let me talk about the Facebook groups and how this is going to work. So we've got a house that's created now and filling up called Rezoom House, which is just for people doing the course. The outward-facing public Facebook group called Reboot Rezoom in 2019 still exists until January 3rd. At the end of January 3rd, it's going to be shut down. And the reason we're going to shut it down is because we don't have staff to staff it year-round. Our Facebook groups, they take a lot of staff time. Like, we really monitor them, love people up in them, answer questions in them, and we only have so many staff around here. I know people... yeah, I don't know what people think, but like we work so hard around here at Bright Line Eating. We really do. And we have to be careful. Like I have to be very careful not to work my team into the ground, They love this movement, and they will do anything, I ask them to do pretty much, but I have to be careful not to load them up too much. So yeah, we have to be very careful of our time resources around here. And make sure that the people who work for Bright Line Eating get like a weekend every now and then and a vacation, and like, don't have to sleep with their phone and stuff like that. Kendra says, I have a 1-year-old baby, which makes any kind of routine or habit stacking really, really hard. Can I still be able to be successful with this course? Kendra, I so feel you. I have 3 kids. And for a time, I had 3 kids under the age of 3. Well, 3 kids under the age of 3.5. Yes, and it will be harder. I mean, it just is, right? So you're going to have to be really gentle with yourself and pick your battles. But yeah, it's still worth it. You don't want to, if you're really suffering with the food and the weight, you don't want to, wait till your kid is 5. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Kathy wants to know, do we have access to review today's presentation again? I think you can. Jen, how would I answer that for Kathy? She can sign back up to watch a replay. I don't know how it works. Catherine W. I joined Bright Lifers in September of 2018 with the financial investment required and immediately fell off my lines. Why would this work? Well, Catherine, it's like anything. You're going to need to work it. but it is a deeper and more nuanced course than I've ever offered. It's going to hold your hand through taking a look. You fell off your lines, why? So if you're willing to show up for what the course offers you, it will provide an experience that is unlike anything that's existed in bright line eating land up until now. I heard like a challenge in your thing, like, why, that costs money and then this costs money. Why would this work? I'm like, well, everything worthwhile in life takes investment of all kinds of sorts. And at the end of the day, your highest self is in charge. You're self-responsible. And you got to ask yourself, do I want to do this course? If you're willing to do it, it will be well worth it. If you're not willing to do it, it won't do anything for you. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee that you can take advantage of. To those folks who've asked about watching this webinar again, we're sending out information, Jen tells me, tomorrow morning about the replay, and you'll have access then. So open your email tomorrow morning. Tina wanted to know that. Can we see this webinar later? I lost 5 minutes in the middle when comforting the crying toddler. Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, check your email tomorrow morning. Kristen B says, can teddy bears overcome resistance to extinction? If so, how long will it take? I think I've kind of answered this question already, Kristen, but it's like, I showed that graph of like, it just takes longer. How long will it take? I don't know your brain. It always, the answer is faster if you never break your lines. Like, stick with the plan, stick with the plan, stick with the plan. How do you do that? Get support, get support, get support. Do the tools. Write down your food the night before. Commit it on the phone with somebody who does bright line eating. If you need to make a phone call for every meal, do that. Like, really do this program. Sit in the morning and meditate for 10 minutes. Like, doing the stuff is what does it. And then you'll see improvements to your brain immediately. Like, it'll get better right away. And then over a stretch of weeks, it'll be better still. And it's always a gradual function. There is no promising of like some magic number of days where all of a sudden it's all better. Wow, lots of questions still. Hold on. Whew, holy smoke-a-doodles. Okay. Wendy W. says, how will this help with someone, me, LOL, you're so cute, who has never felt happy, thin, and free? I seriously think there is something wrong and I have a broken brain. I hear you, Wendy. I have a question for you, and we'll see if Jen can find your answer and copy it up here for me. Wendy, have you ever really, really, really done this all? Like 110%, dotted every I and crossed every T, and still like can't take a bright line breath? Melissa says, January is the busiest time of my entire year. I want to do this, but I'm concerned I won't have the bandwidth. Can you advise me what time you need from us each day? Melissa, could you give me half an hour a day? Susan says, if you're a 6 on the scale and you can tolerate planned exceptions, how does that relate to extinction? Well, Susan, if you plan exceptions, you will create a brain that suggests exceptions here and there. The difference for a 6 is that they don't tap your freedom. Like, so if your brain asking for an exception taps your freedom, then the exception's not working. So let me put this in a different domain where I don't have an issue. Shopping. Every now and then I have a brain that suggests that I go buy something, but I don't have shopping addiction. Never have. I'm like, I could give 2 wits about stuff, to be honest. Yeah, just don't care about stuff. Shopping annoys me. If I could just have a pair of shoes, one that never wore out, I would just wear them forever if they were comfortable. So I have a brain that suggests sometimes that I go buy something, but because I'm low on the susceptibility scale for shopping addiction, I go buy it and then I kind of forget about it, right? There's no loop where I feel like, now am I going to go buy another thing? Oh, I just bought that thing. Was that okay that I bought the thing? I spent some money, blah, 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 blah. Like I have friends who have shopping addiction and the loops in their brain, like I'm like, whoa, like I never think about that. Like, da, 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 da. So, Susan, if your planned exceptions are working for you, the brain suggests the thing, you do it, and then you forget about it. It doesn't create a perseveration issue. Do you get it? If it's hitting your brain in a way that isn't working, then yeah, I think I've said enough. Okay. Marguerite F says, my husband is the one who has the eating addiction. Mine is to alcohol. How can we work together on our different problems? You can't. Leave each other alone. You keep your eyes on your own plate, and the thing you can do best is don't even notice what he's putting into his mouth or not. And he should keep his eyes off your drinking. And if you want help with your drinking, I suggest you go to AA. But you cannot help each other with that. I mean, spouses should be supportive in general, but no, with addiction, it gets really sticky. You got to keep your hand and your eyes out of their stuff. It's family. You just don't mix family and like, yay, we're recovering together. I posted, and my husband just signed up for a Reboot Rezoom, which is really funny because I didn't know he was going to do that. And he just bought a digital food scale. I posted that in the Reboot Rezoom Facebook group. The fact that he bought a digital food scale is funny because we own like 8 or 9 scales. So I was like, he bought another one. Okay. But already he's like, keep your eyes off my scale. Like, this is my scale. He got a white one. All mine are black or silver. And I am not going to notice a thing he eats. And if he's not doing the program in a week, not my business. Not my business. Now, he's a 3 on the susceptibility scale. But he's got some weight he wants to lose. So he's going to do Reboot Rezoom. So anyway, yeah, I learned a long time ago, my husband will sometimes turn to food. And it affects his weight, and I know that bugs him. And so I used to like notice in a way that, how do I put this? In a way that was not helpful. And now I don't notice anymore. Like I have trained myself to just be deaf, dumb, and blind to his food. And it's, yeah, that's the only way it works. Okay. Cheryl, I had success in 2015 with the boot camp with a 40-pound loss. I had 60 pounds left to take off and derailed myself. I have no idea why. I paid for 2 other boot camps and didn't even participate, plus bought every other course that you've offered. I still have not been able to climb out of the ditch. Susan, how can I even hope that this course will throw me the lifeline? Oh, Cheryl. Sweetheart, when you register, there is an identity and inquiry inventory. I think it's time to start shining the flashlight. The coaching in this course is going to be really solid. I suggest that you lean into the coaching and to the other people taking this course and just get curious, sweetheart. There's something going on. Just get curious. Give me a second. Uh-oh, just got one of those weird tickles in my throat. Oh, cold black coffee. It's the only thing I've got to drink in here. Yeah, Cheryl, just get curious, sweetie. I can't promise that you'll keep your lines bright now, but I can promise, this I can promise, if you show up to this course and give it some energy with an open, curious mind, you will learn a lot. And that learning will lead to a shift. This course will produce transformation. Get curious and come find out what's going on, sweetie. Andy says, I've been in the ditch for a year now, like really in the ditch. It sounds like Reboot Rezoom is about how not to get in the ditch, but what if you're already there? How do you get out? Oh no, Andy, Reboot Rezoom is about how to get out of the ditch. For sure. It's about all that, but I'm aware that there are people joining Reboot Rezoom from different current starting points on their bright lines, wanting a deeper experience. Wobbly with their lines, needing more freedom, completely in the ditch, black hole, lights out, not a shred of hope, need a complete transformation. And I am doing my darndest, Andy, to create pathways to happy, thin, and free for all three of those starting points. I know you're there. You are not the only one. And I am super cognizant of needing to design an on-ramp for you out of that ditch. Ruth says, Susan, I'm really excited about Reboot Rezoom. However, I'm way down deep in the ditch. Ruth meet Andy. Andy meet Ruth. And I have many other friends too who are in that same boat. I'm a 10 on the scale. Will there be enough support for me in this course? Yeah, there will. I mean, Ruth, you have to use it, right? But there will, for sure. Amy says, can this help with someone who's done the bootcamp program and worked the program for a year and has not lost weight or held their lines for 7 days? I do a mastermind group, a daily checklist, a buddy, calls, accountability. I've gained a lot, just not automaticity with food. Amy, this course will help you see what's going on there. I am curious. You need some coaching. Come join the course and we need to talk. You need some coaching for sure. Are you a bright lifer, Amy? Yeah, curious about you. Shelly wants to know, how do you get the Bright Lifers discount? Shelly, you go to the Bright Lifers website. So you go to brightlifers.brightlineeating.com, lifers.brightlineeating.com, go to the Bright Lifers website, and then at the top there's a banner to register for Reboot Rezoom. Terry says, I'm not a joiner. I did Bright Line Eating on my own for several months and dropped 46 pounds. I need to resume. I feel like I would be successful doing the Rezoom myself. Discuss the advantages of joining the course. Terry, I talk about this a little bit in the Reboot Rezoom Masterclass, the videos that are out right now. And if you want a really nice description of this, you can read it in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. He talks about why we need to be joiners. We need to be joiners because there's an evolutionarily built-in resistance to maintaining any identity change that's at odds with our social support network. Like, you say you're not a joiner, but I'm guessing you have people you interact with on a daily basis, friends, family, colleagues. And I'm guessing that they don't eat the Bright Line Eating way. Maintaining Bright Line Eating when everybody in your life doesn't do it, and when there are opportunities to connect over food all the time, feels to a human animal like it threatens your membership in your tribe, which is, all the people in your life that you're close to. You're close to some people, and my guess is they don't do Bright Line Eating. It's very important to normalize what you're doing So because what happens is over time, this is just like research shows, over time, our behaviors sync up with the people we spend time with, the people in our circle. The people who are really successful with bright line eating do it with other people who do bright line eating. They have connections that are meaningful, so that the thought of like leaving bright line eating or like picking up some food, it threatens their membership in their community of bright line eaters. So Terry, you can, I mean, you know, I'm just telling you what ups your odds, you know? I'm just telling you how the brain and the, human beings work. So I don't personally know how to help someone be super successful without any bright line eating support. I know that there are people who do that. I think most of them are lower on the susceptibility scale and, super strong-willed and stuff, and they just do it. But mostly I see people leave the bright line eating identity, the bright line eating tribe, and their habits revert back to the average of the people that they spend time with. Charlotte says, what happens in the body and the brain when you eat off like sugar and flour so that it's harder to lose weight once you are eating proper BLE again? Charlotte, sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. I've had to lose my weight several times. The first time I did bright line eating, I mean, like all the times before, gaining and losing, gaining and losing, gaining and losing. But I started eating this way, right? Bright line eating didn't exist, so it was a 12-step program for food addiction. I lost all my weight. I moved to Australia. I gained all my weight back and then some. Binged my way up from a size 4 to a size 24. Then got my lines bright, lost all my weight again. Then I got pregnant with Alexis and Zoe, and I lost my weight after that. Then I got pregnant with Maya and lost my weight after that. 4 times. Fast weight loss, medium weight loss, slow as all get out, like slow as molasses, slow weight loss, super fast weight loss. And, I don't know. Gio says, I'm reading it for a second time along with taking notes. I went strong for a couple of months, and with the holiday time, I stayed at about 90%, a paleo dessert at Christmas, beer and wine here and there, occasional cheat in amounts, etc. I feel like I'm in a gray area between the two programs with a pretty good foundation, but only for a couple of months. What program do you suggest? Probably the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp. It sounds to me like the basic foundation could use pouring. Sahaja, my lines are bright. I have good bright line eating support and systems. I meditate. I feel good. I'm in my right-sized body. And yet I love what you offer, and I'm contemplating this course. What do you think? If I thought I could take it when I might ever need it, I would wait, but I'm suffering from fear of missing out. So I was talking to a bright lifer the other morning on the accountability call who basically had that same question. And what was helpful for her, we talked for half an hour, so we had all kinds of stuff that was said during that time, but what was helpful for her was when she realized that she'd built an identity of somebody who leans all in to bright line eating, who says yes to what's offered here, who just is in. I guess the opposite of the person who said, I'm not a joiner. Terry said, I'm not a joiner. This person realized that she'd been successful with bright line eating by joining and by standing so firmly on the mothership as it sails, on its journey that that she just was happy, thin, and free to the nth degree. And what she realized was that complacency and watching herself decide to stand on the sidelines wouldn't serve her, that she didn't want to choose a different identity. She wanted to keep reinforcing the identity of, yes, I'm in, I do this bright line eating thing. And she decided to sign up for Reboot Rezoom for that reason. Yes, let's see what's here. I don't know if that's your answer. I really believe you'll hear it deep inside. It might be that your answer is, Sahaja, trust. The course will be offered again. now's not your time. I suggest you listen deep inside. I'm always a fan of bringing people back to the still small voice deep inside. Your answers are inside of you. I don't have your answers. But I can provide different thoughts. Those are two different perspectives. What kind of person do you want to be? The kind of person who jumps in and reinforces the identity of saying yes to bright line eating, or the kind of person who trusts and isn't impulsive and decides that, the course will be offered again at a time that's a better fit? I don't know. Nancy K says, how about doing this course along with continued Gideon games? Oh, absolutely. I'm going to do that. For sure. Jane says, you aren't answering the daily video questions. Should we set aside 5 minutes or 20 minutes? Each may vary, but you have some idea of how long they will be. Jane, I don't. Okay, my back's up against the wall. How long are they going to be? I don't know. I sometimes set off to record the vlog and I'm like, I'll keep this 1 to 10 minutes. I really will. And it ends up being 30. I don't know, Jane. You're accusing me of being disingenuous, and I promise you I am not. I haven't even decided in my own head, like, what, if I were to have a limit to, like, respect people's time or whatever, what would it be? I'm not. I could say something now, Jane, but I'll tell you that, I can't even say, I don't even know. I can't know what I can't know. Sorry. Deb says, Susan, I just want you to know I joined boot camp in September of 2018. I joined Bright Lifers a couple of weeks ago. You have changed my life, and I'm so glad I found you. Thank you for loving everyone in the tribe. Thank you, Deb. Andrew says, I shied away from Hibiscus House during my first boot camp because I was having a hard time finding other men that I could relate with. Are there more men involved in Bright Line Eating now? And will the targeted socialization bonus help me find support from other dudes? In all candidness, Andrew, no. There aren't more men now. I mean, there's more people now. So there's more men, but men are still the same proportion of the population. Does that make sense? Like, on a per capita basis, no, there aren't more men. But since there's more people, and a lot of people are signing up for this course, there will be some dudes. But the answer to the other half of your question, will the targeted custom support system bonus help you find support from more dudes? The answer to that question is yes. Yes. Tina says, please do not limit yourself in those 66 videos. Looking forward to watching. I'll let you all fight it out. How long should the videos be? I actually wouldn't mind if you want to let me know how long you think they should be, if there's a limit, whatever. Yeah. Jen is like, no, Susan, don't ask them. Don't ask them. How am I going to get you that information? All right. Rebecca says, I'm in the military and I'm required to work out. How can I resume without falling back into the habit of further wearing down my willpower? Rebecca, it's okay. That's your job. It's a different situation. You might need to fuel your body a little more. Like, the standard weight loss food plan might not be doable in the military. You might need more fuel. But it's okay. You can resume. D says, I feel very unwilling to change my identity to someone who does not eat NMF at least once in a while. Bright line eating is a diet to me. I'm a 10 on the susceptibility scale. Will Reboot Rezoom change my mindset? I don't know. I hear a lot of resistance there. It takes what it takes. It takes what it takes. Like, you're a 10. Okay, if I'm just really honest, Dee, most people that have a serious addiction, which you have as a 10 on the susceptibility scale, never recover and die from their addiction. Addiction is incurable and progressive and fatal. Most people who are chronic alcoholics die of alcoholism. Most people who are chronic heroin addicts die of heroin addiction, and most people who are chronic food addicts die of food addiction. 63% of our population right now is dying from the food they're putting in their mouth, dying too young with lots of pain. With your approach, you will probably be among them. But it's a legit choice. You want to just keep eating your NMF? Go do it. I'm not in the convincing business. Will Reboot Rezoom give you a flashlight and help you shine it on your resistance to ask gentle questions to find out what's there? Yeah. Will it have coaching that will be really incisive and wise to help you figure out why you're holding on so tight to the NMF? Sure. Will you avail yourself of any of it? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea whether Reboot Rezoom will change your mindset. None. Yeah, it takes what it takes. Addiction is a beast. I get it. Andrew, back to you, sweetheart. Andrew, I forgot to mention that there is a special interest group now that's a Facebook group that's all for men, and you will get access to it in the Reboot Rezoom course. It's a Bright Lifers group, but we give new boot campers access to it, and we're going to give people in Reboot Rezoom access to it. And if you join Bright Lifers after Reboot Rezoom, you'll have continued access to it. Ashley wants to know, does Reboot Rezoom help cope with the fear around the weight coming back? Sure. Yeah. I mean, so if you want help with that specific fear, you can get coaching support around it. You can bring that to your phone calls and so forth. It will help with fear in general, because remember in the PowerPoint that I just gave, all of that like smoothing off the edges, that's all lessening of fear and anxiety. And together, the integrated Free Again system helps to smooth off fear in general. Maymuna says, how much social support should I ask for from my husband? He doesn't understand that I'm a 10 plus on the susceptibility scale. He thinks losing weight is just eating less. Have you done the boot camp? In the boot camp, I give really specific advice for bringing a request for support to friends and family. And there's a friends and family video that if you'd be willing to watch, that's a bonus in the boot camp. That would be helpful. In general, I think it's important to remember that there are lots of people in our lives who will never get it. And the more you can just think of yourself as doing Bright Line Eating on your own with support from people in Bright Line Eating, if your husband is actively antagonistic to Bright Line Eating, you will need a lot more support in Bright Line Eating. But just doing it on your own is probably the best bet. I wouldn't expect him to ever get it. Krista says, if I plan on joining Bright Lifers when I'm done with Rezoom, would it be better if I join Bright Lifers first, then sign up for Rezoom? Krista, are you in the boot camp and coming to the end of it? Do you have an option to join Bright Lifers now? You can't just join Bright Lifers unless there's an invitation to you, which you only get at the end of the boot camp or at the end of Rezoom. But if you're coming to the end of your boot camp and you have a choice, I guess that's $100 cheaper. If you don't mind paying for them both at once, you could join Bright Lifers now, and then you would be a Bright Lifer. So you could quickly go into your Bright Lifers website and then download, join Reboot Rezoom from there, and you'd get $100 off. But unless you're at the end of the boot camp, you don't even have that option. Janeth says, one of the reasons I fell off the wagon after 3 months was due to eating the same foods and then finally tiring of them. Where can I get ideas for new meal ideas? You could ask for help from that in the Facebook group or from your phone calls or whatever. In October of 2019, doesn't help you now, but in October of 2019, the Bright Line Eating Cookbook will be coming out with lots of ideas. Sonia says, is it possible to be addicted to sugar but not to flour? I don't feel triggered by flour, but very much so by sugar. Sonia, it's possible to have your brain really noticed the reward value of sugar and not yet noticed it to flour. That was true for me too. Earlier in my life, trying to figure out how to handle my food problem, I eliminated sugar because I could tell that would be a problem. And what I found was I started eating almost exclusively flour products. And that started a long process of me realizing that if I don't have sugar as an option, then I become addicted to flour. Celeste says, I have a lot of experience with weighed and measured sugar and flour-free food fellowships, yet have not been working a 12-step program and have been struggling with following my food plan. Which program would be better for me, boot camp or Reboot Rezoom? The boot camp. Celeste, Bright Line Eating is different than 12-step food programs in some significant ways, and the boot camp will be a really sweet introduction for you, my dear. I think you'll really enjoy it. Lori says, will there be help in addressing the roadblocks that I ran into the first time around? I struggled so much with getting vegetables in. I pretty much detest all vegetables and salad. I tried so hard to persevere in hopes that my taste would change. Instead, I seemed to develop a distaste for even the vegetables that I could originally tolerate, which of course were the ones that slow down weight loss. Every time I resume, I seem to run into this wall quicker every time. I'm worried I can't get past this. Oh, sweetheart. That's a tough one. I don't know, honey. I'm wondering if you could just, I don't know if you know Ari Whitten. Do you hear me ever talk about Ari Whitten? He's a good friend of mine now, and he's like, you can Google him and see what he looks like. Ironically, this dude has every gene for obesity that's been discovered so far. He has all of them. And he's lean. He looks like a classic, weight, bodybuilder guy. And he eats purely for fuel. He eats exactly what he thinks his body needs for health reasons. The only way I can think, Lori, of you sort of getting past this is just surrendering once and for all the notion that food is, eating food is going to be a pleasant experience. You're just like, well, this is what I got to eat to stay alive, be happy, thin and free, I'm not saying that is great. I personally, so let me just, in all candor, let me say that I have no experience with what you're going through. I personally have always loved vegetables. I could eat 10 pounds of roasted Brussels sprouts, I swear to God. And when I finish my vegetables, I want more. I'm like, oh my God, that was so good. I seriously could eat more vegetables. And I don't say that to, I'm sure you're thinking, that would make me really pissed off if I were you. And I just heard me say that. I'm sorry. I guess the reason I say that is because I feel unqualified to coach you. One of the reasons I'm as successful as I am coaching people through their food issues is because I've had almost all of them. My food addiction is so bad. This happens to be one of the issues I've never had. So I actually don't know the way through because I haven't walked that terrain. You know what I mean? It's a tough one, sweetie. Yeah. I'm wondering if you could just, when I was at my lowest point with my food addiction, I did feel like I reached a point where I did not care at all what I ate, what was on my food plan. I just wanted to be free so badly that I remember saying I would eat shoe leather 3 times a day. Whatever it takes. Because, in the old 12-step food addiction program I used to be in, there were sponsors who were stricter than others. Some would say you could eat peas and corn. Some would say you couldn't. Some would say you could eat beans, and some would say you couldn't. And I used to like try to find a sponsor that would that I both liked and respected, and that would allow the foods that I wanted to be able to eat. And after I reached a certain point of desperation, I stopped caring what they would let me eat, because honestly, I didn't effing care. Like, really, I would eat shoe leather 3 times a day. I just wanted to be free. And Lori, my guess is that you'll have to reach that point where you just want to be free more than you want to put food in your mouth that you like the way it tastes. But I don't want to make light of your situation, because I think it's, but it's like a lot of us are in really tough situations, right? Like, I'm in the situation of like, how do I do this with 3 kids and working as hard as I work? Other people are in the situation of like, how do I do this and run a restaurant? Other people are in the situation of, how do I do this with chronic pain? I have migraines every day, and sugar is the thing that alleviates my migraines. I mean, you're not the only one to have to do bright line eating in harder than usual circumstances. So just keep that in mind. Brenda says, if you've completed the 14-day challenge but not yet signed up for boot camp, but have been on a weight loss roller coaster for pretty much your entire life, I lost 115 pounds and gained it all back, for example, wouldn't the Reboot Rezoom be a fit for someone like that? Someone who's rebooted and resumed numerous times over the years? No, Brenda, no. Bright line eating is different. Look in the Reboot Rezoom Facebook group, all the people that have lost that much and more, 115 pounds and more, in the boot camp and are keeping it off. No. You want to do the boot camp. Resuming and rebooting and all those other programs has got nothing to do with doing it in bright line eating. So you should be in the boot camp, sweetie. All right. Someone with no name has said, I've been following bright line eating since May 1st, using your book and the 14-day boot camp, down almost 70 pounds. Woohoo. I followed the plan pretty well until a trip to Europe in the summer, and then I slipped and slided until November 1st when I resumed, which included joining a group of bright line eaters for coffee every week and getting a BLE buddy with a scheduled call once a week. So for the last 60 days, I've been crystal vasing my plan, and it's been wonderful. So do I need more? I don't know. Do you? Ask. Sit quietly and ask. Do I need more? Do I feel called to do one of these courses? Amber says, is there a significant difference between texting as your main method of connection versus phone calls? Yes. Big difference. Big difference. Can you tell I think there's a big difference? Yes. Phone calls, absolutely without a doubt, the most potent tool in our toolkit. Texting helps, nowhere near as potent. 10-to-1 ratio, easy. Darlene says, when should you take supplements? Eating 3 times a day with bright line eating. I am not a supplements guru, no idea. Linda says, what is a Bright Lifer? Okay, Bright Lifers, Linda, is the program that exists for people who've done the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp or Reboot Rezoom. We're going to offer it to people who finish Reboot Rezoom and decide that they want to stay connected for life. Like, I'm in. I do this thing. I do this Bright Line Eating thing. And it's an ongoing program, so there's a yearly membership. You can also do it monthly if you want, but the best deal is to do it yearly. And it's this community of people. There's like over 4,000 of us now. And there's so much stuff in Bright Lifers. It gives you discounts to everything. And it gives you access to our annual gathering, the Bright Line Eating Family Reunion, which is the one workshop that I do live each year. It's about 400 people come to it. Sells out really fast. It gives you a daily accountability call. We hop live on the phone together first thing in the morning for half an hour. You can listen to the recording later if the live time doesn't suit your needs. Lots of coaching support. I do coaching for Bright Lifers on an ongoing basis, always have been for years since the program started. It's the only place where I consistently show up to do coaching. We just got so much of Bright Lifers. It's wonderful. Shelly says, I am 10 months past boot camp. My bright lines are wonky, and I'm still in a right-sized body, but spending more time in my head about food and weight than before. My weight is within 2 pounds of my boot camp goal. Is this the right course for me? Yes. Reboot Rezoom is the course for you. So there's 3 sort of reasons to take Reboot Rezoom. You're a crystal vaser, but you want to deepen your program. You're in your situation where your lines are wonky and you want more freedom. It's not about the weight, sweetheart. It's about the freedom, right? That's what you want, more freedom. Or you're in the ditch and you need help getting out of the ditch. Joanne, can you say more about identifying the resistance factor? I have not added flour and sugar, but cannot seem to get back to weighing and measuring every meal. Will I get support in understanding what the heck is going on? I don't even need to finish reading this, Joanne. Yes, you totally will get support in figuring out what's going on in a way that I can end this cycle. I've had specific issues with weight release, stopping 20 pounds shy of my right-sized body after being on Bright Line Eating for 18 months. I stopped weighing and measuring and have put back 5 pounds in the last 6 months. This is slippery. Will Rezoom provide support with the weight loss stopping, since that was my initial frustration? Yeah, Joanne, but there's resistance all over the place here, right? So you need to figure out what's really going on. There's deeper stuff driving this, right? And yeah, Reboot Rezoom will help if you show up for it and, really get curious and get support for it. And yeah, totally. Laura says, I've wondered about taking one of your courses. I am someone who is a licensed therapist who treats eating disorders, especially binge eating disorder. I also had binge eating disorder, and I asked about your susceptibility scale. I love your concepts, and I wonder, have you had people take your course for dual reasons? Number one, I'm sure it will help me, even though I'm in a right-sized body. I've read your book. I still struggle with holiday recovery, for instance, and this concept is so intriguing. Your thoughts? So, Laura, you're actually of a sort that Bright Line Eating might not be good for. The profile of someone who used to have an eating disorder, doesn't anymore, and is in a right-sized body, I've seen and did it themselves, like recovered themselves, and now monitors their food themselves. I've seen people with that profile try to do Bright Line Eating and discover that it made their food worse. And then at that point, they only recovered if they either went back to the old way that they just did their food on their own, or they doubled down and really dove into Bright Line Eating and did it with more intensity. Like they did it initially, not really doing it. You know what I mean? In which case, basically, it made their food worse because their food indulger kicked up. It set up a battle between their food controller and their food indulger that they didn't expect, because their highest self wasn't really involved really doing Bright Line Eating. So it sort of reawakened the beast, so to speak. So my question for you, Laura, would be, do you really want to do Bright Line Eating? Or are you going to be a looky-loo saying, hey, how's this thing work? Because if you're going to do that, I don't suggest you do it. We do have a woman named Dr. Joy Jacobs in Bright Line Eating who is an eating disorders therapist. You can Google her. She's at UC San Diego. She runs their eating disorder treatment clinic there. And she's a clinical psychologist. And her history is binge eating disorder, anorexia as well. And she's a Bright Line Eater now. And she really believes that Bright Line Eating has great potential to help people who have an eating disorder background. She offers some coaching calls to Bright Lifers, to boot campers, and she moderates our eating disorder house. And you would have access to that if you do either the boot camp or Reboot Rezoom. So you have professional colleagues in Bright Line Eating who are super interested in the Bright Line Eating approach to eating disorders, because basically, you know this, the eating disorder treatment world is all about there are no bad foods and eat everything. I mean, really treatment for anorexia is almost like, how much condensed sweetened milk can we get this person to drink, right? And if you believe in the research on the neuroscience of sugar addiction and food addiction in general, it's why are we giving folks, the message that there are no addictive foods? It's not true. It's not neurologically true. And yet eating disorder treatment programs are still teaching that. As if there's neurological grounding to that perspective, and there isn't. So, Dr. Joy Jacobs believes that a lot of the low failure rates for eating disorder treatment come from a failure to recognize food addiction. So anyway, I don't know if anything I just said was helpful. And I wish I could talk to you live, because I'd be curious to just, get a sense of like, what's your feeling of calling. If it's really coming from your highest self and you really want to do the program, I would say do it. Do the boot camp. Yeah. Melissa says, does the support differ between the boot camp and Reboot Rezoom? I mean, yes and no. Like, here's my hair being weird again. So many people are signing up for Reboot Rezoom. It's my team and I are looking at like, how can we provide, do we need to provide additional coaching calls? We're just going to, we're watching it. Do we need to cap registration? If so, when? And so there might be a difference, for example, in the frequency of coaching calls, because if Reboot Rezoom has a lot of people in it, we're going to make sure that they get supported. But fundamentally, the structure, so the biggest difference in the support between Reboot Rezoom and the bootcamp is in Reboot Rezoom, I'm assuming that I'm working with people who need a little bit more help explicitly getting connected up with other people and getting enough social support on board to keep their lines bright. So I'm putting more hand-holding in place to help people connect up with each other. But the fundamental structures of support with coaching calls, Facebook support, and like ways to get connected with other people in the program are pretty much the same. Jill says, I think I'm finally in a really good place to do the boot camp, but I've really been identifying with the Rezoom videos. Lots of past starts and restarts in the past. Lots of fear of starting something new. I think the boot camp is where I need to be right now, but not being able to start Rezoom right now makes me sad, especially the food prep time saver system and about walking us through how to do and use the support, because that's one of my biggest struggles. Will the boot camp have similar tools or helps? Yeah, Jill, I hear you. You'll be okay. The boot camp will be what you need, sweetie. It really will. It really will. I hear you. And I think what I would actually recommend is like, let yourself feel sad. I think that's appropriate. And do the boot camp. Do what you know you should do anyway. And feel sad about missing out on Reboot Rezoom. And see if you can transfer after you're done feeling appropriately sad for what feels like an appropriate amount of time. See if you can get excited about the boot camp, because I'll tell you this, people who do the Bright Line Eating boot camp with their whole heart experience it as the 10 best weeks of their whole life. I'm not even kidding. Go ask in the Reboot Rezoom in 2019 Facebook group and see if I'm not wrong about that. See the comments that come in under your thread. Say, was this your experience? People sign up for the bootcamp again and again and again and again to try to recapture the magic of that experience. So don't fool yourself, sweetheart. You are in for, like, it's going to blow your mind. Heather says, I've done Bright Line Eating based on the 14-day challenge 3 times now for almost 2 years. I've been able to keep the flour, sugar, etc. off, but I'm struggling with quantities. Is Reboot Rezoom for me? Heather, have you read the book really, really carefully more than once? Have you done some of the other things that are in the book? Jen says, I'm on the last day of the boot camp, not committed to Bright Lifers yet. Still 2 days. Bright lines, white knuckles, perfectionist. Lost 30 pounds with 25 to go, a 10 plus plus on the scale. Do I go into Lifers or this Reboot Rezoom? Not sure, but I haven't had to resume in the boot camp, but white knuckling at times. What do you recommend? Bright Lifers, sweetheart. Dive into Bright Lifers, and I want you to take those white knuckles and use them as your impetus to really, really, really explore Bright Lifers and like make your home in Bright Lifers, meet people, and like there's a getting started checklist for Bright Lifers, like an orientation. It's not a getting started checklist, it's an orientation. It's got videos on everything that's in Bright Lifers. Take that seriously, take notes, go, really, really, really invest in like making your home in Bright Lifers. That's where you need to be, sweetheart. Bright Lifers is the place. Edward says, what I'd like to know is I understand that maybe no sugar, no flour, just flourless, and no wheat might be the best food plan, but I understand that you also mentioned keto, paleo, no grain, and other diets. How do I know which one of these will be the best program to follow that will help me not only live happy, thin, and free? Is there a test you offer that can be taken that can resolve this issue for me? I tried so many, and I did try no sugar, no wheat, and no flour, but sustaining it was difficult. Also, I never got to introduce myself on the webinar, but I too am a guy. Awesome, Edward. The Bright Line Eating Standard Food Plan is probably your best bet. It's just so healthy, and you just don't need to modify it. It's got you covered, Edward. It really does. Ina says, are we born with a susceptibility level, or is this something that is molded throughout our youth? How can you prevent a child from becoming highly susceptible? Great question, Ina. So here's how it works. You are born with a certain baseline level of susceptibility. It's addictive. It's genetic. So addictive susceptibility is genetic. Alcoholism runs in families, drug addiction, food addiction, they run in families. Addictive susceptibility is like one thing. It's like a predisposition to cigarettes, to alcohol, to food, to whatever. In some families you'll see like, oh, three of the brothers and sisters are alcoholic and 3 of them are food addicts and one's a 3-pack-a-day smoker, and you'll see it crop up in different ways, right? So addictive susceptibility is genetic. It can also be brought on by a profoundly triggering childhood environment. Isolation, ridicule, inconsistent food supply, not enough touch, poverty, abandonment, things like that. Okay? A type of like high risk upbringing turns some percentage of genetically non-addictable individuals or organisms into addictable ones. Not all, but some. Then what happens is through life, cue response associations in the environment wire up susceptibility for a specific addiction. Like your brain has to notice, like, oh, I was like haggard and stressed, and then I had a drink, and it was like, oh yeah, baby, that'll do. Your brain has to notice that. And then in a similar environment, it'll try it again. Oh, I think that helped last time. Let's go there for some relief. Oh yeah, that'll do. And now they're on their way to being alcoholic, right? In another environment, it's like, I'm haggard and I'm stressed and I ate some pumpkin pie, and it's like, oh yeah, that'll do. So it wires up over time. The brain starts to notice the cues that predict certain kinds of rewards. And this is how an individual that's addictively susceptible tends to only have some of the available addictions and not others. Like I have almost all of them, but not gaming or gambling or shopping or porn. I don't have those, but I've got all the rest, pretty much. So yeah. I hope that makes sense. Jane says, is Reboot Rezoom useful for people who have a susceptibility of 10 and eat sugar, only 25 grams per day, but are happy and thin but not free? Yes, Jane, but only if they've been doing Bright Line Eating for a while and ideally done the boot camp. If not, you should do the boot camp. Wendy D says, I used your book and vlogs to start the Bright Line Eating journey, losing 30 pounds and feeling incredible. Now at holiday time and after listening to your Reboot Resume videos, I feel that program is for me. I've learned that I've been isolating, So Bright Lifer sounds like something I would benefit from. However, of course, when trying to join, I've learned that I can't join because I haven't attended boot camp. If I do Reboot Rezoom, will there be an opportunity to join a similar community of support? Better than similar, you'll be able to join Bright Lifers itself. And yeah, Bright Lifers is the place to be, baby. So yes, if you do Reboot Rezoom, you will be able to join Bright Lifers. And if you feel called to do Reboot Rezoom, that sounds like it'll be fine. You've been doing Bright Line Eating for a while, and yeah. Reboot, Rezoom, or boot camp. If I am in maintenance, using only the book, lately struggling with maintenance and feeling the fear of regain, is Reboot, Rezoom okay? Yeah, Sandra, I think Reboot, Rezoom would be good for you. Maggie says, how much time per day will I need to spend outside of the daily videos? Is there a lot of other homework? You're going to want to build a network of support, which is going to involve some daily reaching out to people. So I would say a half an hour to an hour a day, including the morning video, would be good. But you don't need to spend that every single day necessarily. But some daily support would be good. But that could be a phone call to somebody as you're driving into work. Bluetooth headset is our friend. And, I would say if you can spend a couple hours a week at least, diving into doing some writing, or there will be assignments that it'll be helpful for you to do, but you don't need to necessarily have daily time. Renee says, my husband of 34 years is supporting me in Bright Line Eating. He isn't someone who struggles with food challenges like I do. He's low on the susceptibility scale. I'm high on the scale. Do you offer anything to help him as he supports me? He will like the results, but doesn't fully understand the food addiction and the cycles I've had of up and down weight over the years. Your comment, I do Bright Line Eating while I feed my family, or something like that, made me wonder if you feed your family differently. We are like the Jack Sprat could eat no fat, his wife. Well, you know the nursery rhyme. He just needs more food. Do I just offer him bigger quantities of what I'm eating? Renee, you can do that. And then you can also add, he can also eat stuff outside of the house that you don't eat. And then you could also, I would, if he's willing to just support you and just eat what you eat, I would just, he doesn't need to worry about his quantity. So he can just keep taking more helpings. Yeah. Shelly says, if you have lots of support and do use it, is it possible that you just won't ever get it? Kind of like a hopeless alcoholic. This is a, oh God, I don't know. You just caught me here. Some addicts never get it, right? They just don't. And I personally believe that if someone is willing to keep trying and to square their shoulders and stay curious to what's really going on, they can get it. But those are two big ifs. Not everybody's willing to keep trying, and not everybody's willing to square their shoulders to reality, to what they might find if they open the trunk and look back there, I think that I think that people don't get it for all kinds of reasons. But I think that at least I want to believe. And I don't know that there's any way to test this or prove this, right? I mean, how would we test it? But I do believe that if we handle the things that are within our control, really showing up to a strong program of recovery, working it with all our heart, mind, and soul. It's just a matter of time, and it clicks in at some point. And then those of us who've had to suffer more with our addiction become the only people who can help people who are in the ditch. And it's that black. So it becomes worth it, ultimately, in its own weird way. Don't give up. And check yourself. Are you really doing everything you can? Have you come all the way in and sat all the way down here for real? Wow, so many more questions still, really? Oh my goodness. I gotta eat dinner at some point. I never let questions go unanswered, though. You know me. Oh, Lord. Elle says, for 2 years I've been following interval fasting and I eat within a 6-hour window only. I don't eat sugar, flour, soy, or dairy. I love all your vlogs, emails, research suggestions, and your movement. Because of interval fasting, I haven't done, even though I paid for, the boot camp or become a Bright Lifer. Does this difference in my particular eating style mean I can't ever do any of your classes like Reboot, Rezoom? Thank you for all you do. P.S. I scored a 9 on the susceptibility scale. Elle, you're completely holding yourself back for no reason, sweetheart. There's no reason you can't do bright line eating. Did you just say you paid for the boot camp? Why don't you go start with the boot camp, sweetheart, and just do it? You can totally do it within a 6-hour feeding window. Easy. 3 meals, 2 meals, whichever you prefer, however you're doing it. It's fine. If you want to do Reboot, Rezoom, I would say you should do the boot camp because you haven't really done that yet, right? Do the boot camp. Cindy says, I'm a Bright Lifer and a Crystal Vaser on day 143. I'm closing in on goal weight soon and will start the maintenance dance, which I know can be a squirrely time. Will Reboot, Rezoom help with that transition and potential pitfalls? If so, how? You know, Cindy, you could do Reboot, Rezoom for that, but I sort of feel like your best support would be in Bright Lifers. In Maintenance House, really diving in to the maintenance tools that are offered in Bright Lifers. You can do Reboot, Rezoom if you want. I'm not saying it won't help. How would it help? It would help by giving you a process for shoring up your program, the 3-legged stool, food, actions, support, having you look again at everything as you add food. But Bright Lifers has got you covered too, sweetheart. Up to you. Just listen inside, see what you feel called to. David A. says, I signed up for boot camp early this fall, but due to some personal tragedies, got derailed completely shortly after I started. I need some help understanding what my options are to get back on track. I'm contemplating Reboot, Rezoom, but I haven't really been through the boot camp. Can I still do the boot camp and perhaps do Reboot, Rezoom after? I really want to get back on track, but I'm worried that I've missed my window. What do you recommend? I recommend you sign up for the boot camp again, which is there's a huge discount when you sign up again. Way cheaper than Reboot, Rezoom. And because I'm me, I don't actually know how to do that. Go to support.brightlineeating.com and ask my team, as a returning boot camper, how do you sign up for the boot camp again, and tell them that you fell off track tell them exactly what you just told me and say, I want to sign up for the boot camp again right now. How do I do that? I need a link to do that. What's my best path? Okay. Carrie says, I'm a bright lifer. I've been 7 to 10 pounds from goal for at least 6 months, struggling to keep up with the structures of bright line eating and stopped writing my food down, etc. Have great social support and a wonderful mastermind group, but probably don't use the tools enough. Have young kids, my own business, and I'm struggling to find the time for self-care. Will this help me? Only if you're willing to carve out the time, sweetheart. I'm going to tell you something that Ryan Eliason, one of my mentors, told me early on. He didn't tell it to me. He said it to someone else, but I've never forgotten it. There's always time for what's most important. And he said that's not a slogan. It's a truism. There's always time for what's most important. Think about it like this. Busy CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You couldn't get 15 minutes on this guy's calendar ever. Dude's busy, chronically busy, jet setting around the world. His wife died a few years ago. He's, on his own in the world, just keeps himself busy with work. And then he's at a dinner party and this woman turns his eye. They chit-chat for a couple hours. He gets her number. And before you know it, he's personally sending her flowers to arrive at her workplace. He's going on a website. He's not even asking his assistant to do it. He's changing his itinerary to fly home from Dubai early so he can swing through the city she lives in to call her just to see if she could have lunch with him. He was busy, but there's always time for what's most important. What's most important gets done. Judy from Boulder says, I did the boot camp in June and July and then struggled with NMF cravings and trying to combine with another program, which bombed out with too many high-fat calories. What about doing the metabolic reset plan until I really get into Reboot Rezoom? Or can I do the metabolic reset plan and get back on track and bright line eating without Reboot Rezoom and save my money for Europe in May? In general, my food susceptibility is a 5 or 6, but sugar is a 9 or 10. My thought is you need to do BLE pure, like no metabolic reset, no combining with another program, just do bright line eating. Like the happy, thin, and free that you're looking for, it's like, do bright line eating. So sit with whatever it would take you to do that and do that. Michelle says, weird question. I haven't done the identity module yet, but when my food is bright, I spend lots of money when stressed. When I eat, I spend less. Will the in-depth identity module help me find the roots of my addictions? That's really common, sweetheart. It's addiction transfer. Like basically your brain is looking for the dopamine relief and it'll get it anywhere it can. And so, the answer is more support. Keep your food clean. And then make reach out calls and find other people who struggle with their spending and get some support around that too. It just takes time for the brain to heal and you just start to address. I mean, it's like whack-a-mole. Those of us who are super addicted, we find, this happened to me so many times over the years. Oh, wait, now I'm smoking cigarettes. Oh, wait, now I'm, those of us who have these incorrigible brains, it just takes time to get the real recovery. Just keep going. Keep going. Lovita says, finished boot camp in November. I missed a lot of the modules because of working and going to school full time. Pretty much since Thanksgiving, my lines have not been bright. Since I missed a lot in the boot camp the first time, I was thinking I would go through the course again. What are your thoughts about doing my boot camp versus resuming? P.S. Even though my lines are not bright, I'm not as anxious because I feel like you've provided the key to my successful weight loss. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, Lovita, do the boot camp again. That sounds great, sweetie. Natasha, one downside of weight loss for me is very high sexual energy, so high that it's hard to focus on other things. I'm a single mom and I'm keeping an eye out for potential mates, but I only date amazing guys that are a potential match. Do you have a suggestion for how to lower my sexual energy when not in a serious relationship? I don't know how to lower sexual energy when not in a serious relationship? What's the opposite of like a aphrodisiac? I don't know. I'm sorry, Natasha, I don't. I can relate, to the high sexual energy. Sometimes that's happened to me where it sort of comes and goes, but there have been periods in my life where I'm like, whoa, what's this about? I don't know. I'm sorry, sweetie. Anne says, my question is, with all the energy and enthusiasm going into this new class, will the staff have the bandwidth to support those of us who are engaging in the lifers offerings? Ultimately, this program works when I engage. Oh, and totally. And some of it is that it's different staff. So the staff who are devoted to the lifers are so, yeah, totally. So we hired someone brand new who's a Reboot Rezoom coach, and she has been teaching workshops on recovery at Hazelden, the world's premier recovery institute, for over 10 years. She's so seasoned, so good, and she's been doing Bright Line Eating now for a long time. So the staff who are committed to Bright Lifers and have been making that program amazing, they're still on Bright Lifers. We're not switching them over to Reboot Resume. We basically hired more staff, which we would have to serve this many people well. But good point. Yeah, we're not diverting resources. Gay says, do you have any opinions about getting a buddy you've not known before Bright Line Eating versus a good social friend who is now starting Bright Line Eating? Does this cause any conflict between a friendship, etc.? In general, I'm a big fan of the circle of 6. Like, you want to have several people in your innermost circle of Bright Line Eating support, and I would say that friend can be one of them, for sure. And it doesn't need to cause conflict. I have lots of people from my life from before who are now in Bright Line Eating and are totally in my inner circle. Totally. Mary says, hi, Susan. I'm a 10 to the 10th power on the susceptibility scale. I relentlessly play mind games, rationalizing why I shouldn't eat this or that. I'm a lifelong Weight Watcher, joined the first time in 9th grade, cycled through gaining, losing countless times. I did the 14-day challenge, but fell off the wagon relatively quickly thereafter. I haven't done the boot camp, but I assume that is where I should begin. Yeah, and Mary, I just want to call you out a little bit. You did the 14-day challenge, but fell off the wagon quickly thereafter, which means it worked during the 14-day challenge, and then you didn't sign up for the boot camp at the end of the 14-day challenge. There's the rub right there. It's the overconfidence bias, right? It's like, oh, I'm on a good roll, so I don't need to keep doing what's working. So yes, go sign up for the boot camp, and then when you get offered Bright Lifers, do it. Stay on the mothership, in the middle of the ship. Nobody falls off the center of a building. Nobody falls off the roof if they're standing in the center of the building surrounded by people really doing it. Karen says, do you ever have a hard time with reading on nutrition, etc., in your daily food practice? I'm thinking I'm going to have to avoid reading any other nutrition or diet books to stay on bright lines. I so support that notion, Karen. Yes, keep tunnel vision. Just ignore all the blogs, all the books, everything. Just focus. Bright line eating, are there ways to tweak to be optimally nutritionally sound? Yes, but bright line eating will get you 90% of the way there. And to be honest, if you fall off your bright lines and eat a pint of ice cream, that perfect nutritional tweaking of like, do I get more beta carotene from carrots if they're cooked or raw? Well, if you eat a pint of ice cream for dinner tonight, it doesn't really matter, does it? Right? So just do bright line eating. Your health will take care of itself. I have the data to show that. Like, health conditions of all kinds. Now, I can't promise, and that's probably a health claim that the FCC won't let me make. But I can show you averages, which the FCC would support, of like, what's the percent of people who have this condition who come off their meds or reduce their meds with the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp, and this condition, and this condition, and this condition. So yeah, Karen, totally keep tunnel vision. Don't pay attention to any of those nutrition blogs until your lines are super bright. And even then, be careful. A lot of those are wormholes that just distract us from our bright lines. Rhonda says, will Brightline Mind be offered again? I loved that course and hope to get others in my life an opportunity to do it. It was almost as life-changing as the Brightline Eating Bootcamp. Does this new Reboot Resume course integrate some of the Brightline Mind information into it? Tiny bit, not much. Yeah, a little bit. Tiny bit, not much. And Rhonda, yes, we are hoping to offer Brightline Mind in 2019. don't know when exactly, but yes, we are. Deepa says, being a South Indian, the food suggested in Bright Line Eating is very different from what I'm used to. Can you speak to this? Also, how many successful participants do you have in Bright Line Eating in the age range of 40 to 45? I can speak to the age one first. The average age of a Bright Line Eater, I believe, is 55, and I believe it's about a bell curve. So 45, there would be a lot of people, 40 to 45 in that age range. And yes, the food recommendations are quite different. This is again where I'm a little bit out of my depth because I haven't ever traveled to South India, let alone lived there. So it would be hard for me to know how to do Bright Line Eating in that environment. Tricky. I will say that if there's no sugar or no flour, the challenge is if you don't eat a lot of fresh vegetables, it's really hard to get the transformation. And I think part of that is that simple fresh vegetables help the brain lower the body fat set point. I wish I had more for you, sweetheart. I don't want to. I really hesitate to like claim expertise that I don't have. I don't know how to suggest that you do Bright Line Eating. I certainly would be willing to see what kind of resources we can provide for you. I know that we've had people from over 100 countries do our programs, and I could look into Bright Lifers to see if we can buddy you up with somebody that has experience living in South India. I bet we have someone or a few someones. But I don't want to promise that I know because I don't. Does that make sense? So if you decide to sign up for one of our programs, reach out to my team and let's see if we can find you somebody that has been successful from your part of the world who can help to give you actual feedback and guidance on what has actually worked in that environment. Lass says, I've heard you talk about the brain trying to keep you from losing weight. I was just mentioning that, the body fat set point. Yes. Can you talk about that and how this is helpful? I was doing the program last summer and hit a plateau and have basically been maintaining there since the beginning of September, whether I'm following the plan or just eating no sugar and no flour loosely. Thoughts? Last summer you told me you thought it was me holding on to my grief, but I seem to have moved through that. Yeah, last, the body fat set point is, sort of the weight that the brain thinks you should be, and then you lose weight below that, and it tweaks everything it can to fight and get you back up. Keeping food pretty simple is one of the things, like low reward value, is one of the things that allows the brain to lower the body fat set point. Here's what I will tell you from enduring a long stretch of time, years, where my brain was defending a higher body fat set point than I wanted. I will tell you that the most ridiculously tiny deviations in your bright lines will keep you from living happy, thin, and free under those circumstances. So my first and best suggestion would be up your support and work your program so strong that you have immaculate bright lines. I mean, on the weight loss food plan, not a single bite of a single baby carrot off your plan. Avoid restaurants for a stretch of time. Do that for 30 days and see if your weight doesn't drop. I bet you it will. I bet you it will. Regina said, and congratulations on moving through your grief, sweetie. Regina says, I plan to resume after several successful months of doing Bright Line Eating. My problem is I have 2 addictions. When I worked through my food addiction doing Bright Line Eating, I turned to my other addiction more so, and it has gotten worse. Any videos or course on handling dual addictions? It depends on what that other addiction is. I always recommend targeted support for a specific addiction. Meaning, if it's smoking cigarettes, read Alan Carr's book, The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. If it's, codependency, go to Al-Anon. If it's, you get me? Like, get support for that addiction from the people who know how to help you recover from that addiction. And in my experience, being massively dual addicted to all kinds of stuff, there have been times where I've had to, be working a program of recovery in 3 different domains because all 3 were up for me. And is that time consumptive and obnoxious and really unfair feeling? Yes, it is. I always say having a brain like mine is like having a special needs child, right? It's just so much extra work. It's just kind of the way it goes for those of us who have it. Shelley says, for me, when I've talked to a non-bright line eating person about the plan, usually within a few hours, I tend to break a line. What's that about? That's intense, Shelley. So there is some kind of like codependent, like social thing going on there. So first of all, I want to see you up your bright line eating support a lot so that you feel like I want you to list the most important people in your life. This is going to be intense for you. I want you to list the most important people in your life, and then I want to work till you have as many people who do bright line eating who are as important as that. Now, it's not going to be possible to achieve fully, probably, because spouse, kids, or whatever, but I want you to work so that your bright line eating support is that strong. And then lean on those people when you have those conversations with those other people. Mary Beth says, if you're higher on the scale, will a change in the neural pathways help to feel like you're lower on the scale? Yes, totally. Or will breaking a line cause the same cravings and same difficulty in resuming? Yes, that too. So if you're higher on the scale, a change in the neural pathways, if you never break your lines, will feel like you're getting to live in the world as someone who's lower on the scale, but you never get to break your lines. The minute you break your lines, the reality of your high number on the scale comes home to roost, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. Sorry. Anne says, I signed up and paid in full over a year ago. I bought the tools needed and read it all. I saw Facebook a little and then seemed to lose it. I never got started, and I couldn't find help. Question mark, question mark, question mark. I don't know what you're asking, Anne. I don't know what your question is. So if you have a question, type it into the box. Maria says, do we exercise during the program? I know it wasn't encouraged during the boot camp. Reboot Rezoom isn't going to deal with you starting exercise either. Exercise is sort of an outside issue. If you want support about, is it time to start exercising, my coaching staff and I can help answer that, but it's not part of the program. Nicole, what would you recommend, Rezoom or boot camp? I did boot camp when you first offered it several years ago. I had a difficult time sustaining my bright lines. I totally related to all of the Rezoom videos. I believe in bright line eating, but I had difficulty sustaining it due to my perfectionism. I would rather do Rezoom than do the boot camp again. Yeah, Nicole, do Reboot Rezoom. Totally. The Duke study referenced 7 servings as being most effective for state of mind improvements. How does that compare to BLE's 3x and only 3x's per day? Love you, Al. Our quantities are bigger than theirs. If you look at the number of grams that they were calling a serving, our 6 ounces of vegetables at lunch is 2 servings, according to them. So we're way up. We're way more than 7. Laura says, how does this program vary from the Bright Lifers modules? Completely different. I found I didn't use Bright Lifers much as I wasn't having issues sticking with the program at that point. Yeah, completely different. And you have to be on Facebook for this program to be successful. I got off Facebook a few months ago and don't really want to go back to it. And you don't have to be on Facebook, but I would recommend you consider. You don't have to be on Facebook. You really don't. And in the course, I describe that more fully. So for now, let me just say, you can get tremendous value out of Reboot Rezoom without rejoining Facebook. You really can. Barb says, how long does it take for dopamine receptors to replenish? It depends on the person and how badly they're blown out. We don't have data on this in human beings. And just like insulin sensitivity, for example, some people, the minute they stop eating sugar and flour, any insulin insensitivity they had goes away almost right away. Other people are so profoundly diabetic and their whole insulin response system is so damaged that, 6 months after they do bright line eating, they still can't eat a serving of pineapple because, with lunch, because they're just so sensitive to it. So it really, really depends. We don't have human data on that. It's one of the research studies I want to do. Edith says, are the references to the research connecting veggies and positive mental health available? I work at a psychiatric residential facility for youth, and I'm forever advocating for healthy eating. The research sounds like it could be beneficial. Those references might be in my book. So in the book, at the end, there's a section on happy, thin, and free. Happy. Look at the references in there. Do you address emotional eating, Jennifer? Yes. T says, the graph you showed us in the intermittent reinforcement, how many days to the brain not hounding us for those who have engaged in intermittent reinforcement versus those who don't engage in that? I think I've answered this question a few times. It varies, but the graph is going down steadily, right? So I can't give a specific answer. A, it would be different for every brain, and B, that research hasn't been done. So it's going to go down steadily, and some people will experience relief really quickly, and some people will still have a brain that's suggesting they eat stuff after months. But for everybody, it improves. I'm planning a trip to Disney January 17th to 21st. I feel like I should wait to start boot camp until then, even though I have enrolled today. I'm currently on day 4 of the 14-day challenge. Is that okay? Rajani. You can, sure. So finish your 14-day challenge and just don't go through the getting started checklist, of the boot camp. In the boot camp, there's a getting started checklist, and then you click to start day 1. You can actually go through the getting started checklist. Well, don't do the research part. So just wait and then start it all. You bought it, so just hold on to it and just start it January 21st. Twyla R says, within the brain science parts of things, is there anything we should know about those of us on bupropion, a norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitor? I'm sure it seems as if this drug is a bit of an H-bomb right in the middle of what we're trying to heal here. Potentially. I actually have no experience with that drug. However, I feel like there's hope. I've seen so much recovery in people who are taking drugs that affect the neurotransmitters that we're trying to heal, the systems around. So I would just trust that the brain is remarkably resilient. And I'm not sure what you're taking that drug for, but also keep talking to your doctor, because maybe gradually a weaning off might be possible. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I don't know whether that would be true for you or not. But Birdie says, I'm in module 5 and I signed up for another boot camp. Will they overlap, or can it wait till I finish? It can wait till you finish. Jan says, in Reboot Rezoom, are you able to select your own day 1 like you can in the boot camp? Yes. I'm on the road juggling a lot and would like to start a few days later after I'm actually home. Thank you. Yeah, that'll be fine. Is it worth taking the susceptibility quiz more than once? Kathleen. I'm sure lots and lots of people do that. Kathleen, you're just going to want to keep in mind each time that the quiz wants you to think about when your eating was at its worst. That's your score forever and ever, because you'll always have to be more vigilant than someone who never had a brain like that ever. So, yeah. Allison says, does posting in Bright Lifers have a vagal effect? Allison, I want to reach out to Barbara Fredrickson and do that study because I think it will, but we don't know. We don't have that research. Marietta says, I've been doing bright line eating for 4+ months pretty closely, but in the past on other types of plans, I've succeeded in the weight loss and kept it off for about 6 months and then slowly regained it. I feel like I can do this on my own. I'm asking myself, why am I paying $4.97 to continue doing what I'm doing? Am I afraid I'll regain it? Yes. Is that the reason to do this? I feel great. I look great, and everyone is noticing. Thank you. I've been doing bright line eating for 4+ months pretty closely. I feel like I can do this on my own. I'm not even clear. Did you do the boot camp, Marietta? Are you in Bright Lifers now? I'm a little confused about where you're at within our framework. You can try this research on your own. What I've experienced and what I'm watching massive numbers of people experience is that when we step outside of the environment that works, it unravels on us. It feels like it won't. There's a profound overconfidence bias that kicks in. That said, I really encourage people to listen to their inner self and run the experiments they want to run. So what I invite you to consider is, what's the value to me of, having a higher risk? It's not that I can promise you it will work if you do this or it won't work if you do that. Of course, I can't promise any of that. I have no crystal ball. I don't know you, right? What I can tell you is, statistically, on average, there are profound differences in success rates, and we have data on this from people who stay close to the mothership, who watch themselves re-up their identity by staying involved, staying in the program, and people who decide to do it on their own. So my question for you is the potential value to you, both financially and in terms of time commitment and all that other stuff, of having some odds of succeeding outside program, but significantly lower odds, is the potential that might work more valuable to you than the dramatically increased odds of success if you stay on the mothership with the tribe? It's your choice which of those pros and cons you prefer, right? I've run that experiment so many times, and for me, it's like being happy, thin, and free is so valuable that no way am I running that experiment. I know how it goes for me, and living happy, thin, and free is like, I can't even tell you how much more valuable it is than any financial investment, right? So, but not everybody feels that way, and I can't call your odds, you know what I mean? Like, I can't tell you how to weight those things for you. Patty says, I just signed up and I really want to start this, but I'm starting a new job on the 7th also. Too much? Not necessarily. There's always time for what's most important. Margot says, any special tips who joined Reboot Rezoom and lives alone, i.e. no spouse or family handy, for urgent support needs in the middle of the night? Yeah, use the Facebook group. I'm not sure what you mean by urgent support needs in the middle of the night. Most of our support for doing Bright Line Eating doesn't come from our family anyway. It comes from people in the Bright Line Eating community. I suggest you make sure you have buddies in other time zones, so that if you need support in the middle of the night, you pick up the phone and you call someone in Australia. You call someone in Europe. You call someone, if you live in Australia, you call someone in America. Sally Ann says, how does this sync with the McDougall's vegan diet? It's very easy to be vegan on Bright Line Eating. You just pick your proteins from the plant-based list. McDougall's plan in particular is super high in starch, which is not good for the healing of the brain initially. There are a ton of whole food plant-based people in Bright Line Eating, and in any program you take of ours, there will be a massive cohort of people who are whole food plant-based, and you will have tons of support. So if you want to get on the phone with one of them and just hash out the particulars, it'll be super easy. And we have a whole food plant-based food plan that it'll be one of the ones that shows up for you to download right away. I'm on a road trip for 2 to 3 weeks at the end of January. I've enrolled in Reboot Rezoom and was wondering if I should wait until after my trip to start. No, Victoria, if you're enrolling in Reboot Rezoom, you want to just get started with the cohort, because it's not the kind of course that you can just, it's like happening now in real time. I mean, you could, everything's recorded and you do have access for 6 months after the course ends. So I guess you could. I think it's up to you, sweetheart. Karen says, will you write a book with the scientific information you just shared in this webinar in it? I don't know, but probably not. But I don't know. The third book I'm planning is called Rezoom, but I don't know if this science will be in there. It might be. We'll see. I don't have a crystal ball that goes out that far. Holy smoke-a-doodles. Did I make it to the end of the questions? I think I did. Can I go have dinner? Maybe I should. Oh, wait. Heather D says, can you give some more information about the social connection piece for super crazy, busy, working mother introverts? Oh, awesome. Super crazy, busy, working mother introverts. We have a module for you. Okay, this is part of my program that has really struggled since the beginning. Heather D, we have an Identify Your Isolator module. So for you and all the introverts out there, and especially the ones who've got all kinds of stuff where your isolator can tell you you're too busy for support, etc. Yes, Heather, we have a module. It's one of the bonuses that will help you identify what's legit you needing to take care of your life, take care of your kid or kids, take care of yourself privately alone, and that's the best use of your time. And what is you pulling yourself away from support that you need? If you're struggling with your food and not reaching out for support, it's called isolation. And you have the profile of somebody who's got a very strong isolator. So we're going to give you a flashlight and help you shine the light on that. Yes, for sure. Okay, now I think I've got all the questions. All right, everyone. It was so sweet to spend this time with you. So sweet. 1,137 people left out of 4,000 and something. You are the hardy plants in the garden, still here. Shall we go lead our lives? I will be doing Facebook Lives and another webinar in 2 days. And pretty soon, the Reboot, Rezoom, brouhaha will come to an end, and you'll stop getting an email from me every friggin' day. And I love you very much. I'm going to go have dinner with my husband. And our kids are at his parents' house, so there won't be kids around. But it has been a pleasure. Craig says, add me to the special list of men. Craig, I can't. You have to do that. So get into the course, watch the videos, and I will tell you about the special interest groups. Then you need to click and you need to go through the process online to get yourself added. It's a technology thing. You have to add yourself, okay? But the men in there will be very, very happy to welcome you and to have you in there. So awesome. Okay. All right. I am going to go ahead and sign off. On the count of 3, I love you very much. Thank you for spending all this time with me. And goodbye. 1, 2, 3.